Chapter 101. Was the Great Qin Emperor a woman? After passing the myriad elixir scripture and the myriad spirit scripture to Wang Luo, Chuzan passed him the concealment technique as usual. He also included a few secret techniques. This included the immovable mountain technique, which was a great defensive technique. It was not an exaggeration to say that, armed with these secret techniques, Wang Luo was almost invincible among alchemists of the same level. He would definitely be the most powerful existence among alchemists. The 100 tempering divine technique was complete, so, after thinking for a bit, Chuzan decided to pass the first part of the 100 tempering divine technique to Su Shaner, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo. He would also pass it to Chu Yun when she came back. He called them out of the pocket dimension. Today, I will teach you a great soul technique. Chuzan then passed the 100 tempering divine technique to the three of them. At the same time, he also passed the soul cloning technique and the soul substitution technique to the three of them. He did not need these soul secret techniques. In the future, when the three of them went out to explore the vast cultivation world, these techniques might come in handy. This was especially true of the soul substitution technique. During critical moments, the technique could save their lives. Su Shaner and the other two were shocked. This soul technique was too powerful and mysterious. They felt that Chuzan's strength was unfathomable. After sending the three of them back into the pocket dimension to continue cultivating, Chuzan took out the myriad heavenly mirror. He injected his spiritual power into it and the myriad heavenly mirror connected to a random place. Waves of light rippled, and an image projection appeared. A cliff, an ancient tree, and a beautiful woman. The 10,000 heavenly mirror connected to a cliff. On a large rock, a beautiful woman in a man's attire sat cross-legged. The woman was cultivating. On the cliff, there was an ancient tree with sparse foliage. Chuzan's gaze landed on the woman. The woman's appearance was extremely beautiful, and she seemed to exude a heroic air. The heroic air seemed innate and blended in perfectly with her beautiful appearance, giving the whole scene a special charm. What a beautiful woman! Chuzan gasped in shock. What a heroic and valiant beauty! He then examined the woman's cultivation level. She was at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Suddenly, Chuzan noticed that the woman did not seem too old. She only seemed to be in her 20s. Continue reading on 0nmyboxn0vel. Although cultivators could maintain their youthful appearance, their age could not be concealed in front of experts. Chuzan's strength was much higher than the other parties, so he could naturally tell the approximate age of the woman from a glance. She had already broken through to the 3rd level of the Emperor realm at such a young age. There were many people in the truth realm in their 20s, and they were all considered top geniuses. However, no genius in their 20s could break through to the Emperor realm unless they had gained some special opportunities. This was a huge hurdle. Even if one only needed 10 years to break through from the profound realm to the truth realm, one would still be stuck at the bottleneck to the Emperor realm for a long time. They would need time to accumulate and would have to wait for an opportunity to break through. Chuzan could not help but think of the special situation that allowed this woman to surpass the 100-year Emperor realm benchmark. He immediately became very interested in the valiant woman. Luo Ying, the top heaven's favorite of the Luo family of the central region in the eastern zone, which is a human king's family, possesses the bloodline of the human king, and is the reincarnation of the great Qin Emperor Qin Ying. He was reincarnated using the human king's Dao weapon. Under the Heaven's Secrets origin probing technique, the identity of the woman was revealed. At the beginning, Chuzan felt shocked. She had such a powerful background. She came from the central region's human king's family and possessed the bloodline of a human king. However, when he reached the end of the probing technique's description, Chuzan was stunned. She was the reincarnation of the great Qin Emperor. The great Qin Emperor was a woman. For real, the peerless figure who had unified the South Province and established the great Qin Empire was actually a woman. Something was not quite right. Chuzan took a deep breath and continued to investigate the woman's origins. Qin Ying relied on the human king's Dao weapon to reincarnate into the Luo family. Did this mean that he died back then and his soul escaped? At the same time, he had laid out a plan for the Asura ancient land and plotted his return. Despite further investigation, he could not find out Qin Ying's original gender because the Heaven's Secrets origins probing technique was disturbed. The human king Dao weapon in Qin Ying's body was interfering. Chuzan was only at the Supreme Realm, and the Heaven's Secrets origins probing technique was not powerful enough to ignore the human king Dao weapon's interference. The Eastern Zone's Central Province. Qin Ying had actually reincarnated into the Eastern Zone's central region as a member of the Human King's Luo family. Did Qin Qian know about it? The Human King's family was a truly top-notch faction. Those who could be called Human Kings were all peerless existences who led the rise of the human race and unified the area they were in. The 5 zones that the human race occupied were all related to the rumored Human Kings. Of the 5 zones of the human race, only the Northern Zone had never produced a Human King. The other zones were different. The rise of their Human Kings, who swept the land in all directions and annihilated all enemies, led the human race to become the leader of those zones. It was precisely because of this that they were called Human Kings. The Eastern Zone was too far away from the Northern and Southern zones, so Chu Zan did not know much about that zone, and the Luo family only showed up in a few records in some ancient books. Qin Ying had actually reincarnated into the Luo family. Could it be that his Human King Dao weapon was left behind by the Luo family's Human King? More importantly, was the Great Qin Emperor really a woman? For some reason, Chu Zan felt that something was not right. After placing the last mark of the Myriad Heavenly Mirror on Qin Ying's body, Chu Zan deactivated the Myriad Heavenly Mirror. Today he encountered an unexpected surprise. The Myriad Heavenly Mirror had connected to Qin Ying, an important figure in the context of the Asura ancient land as well as a key figure who laid out the plan back then. The other party had already reincarnated. Furthermore, he had reincarnated into the Luo family of the Eastern Zone. Could it be that he wanted to use the might of a Human King's family to take revenge and rise up once again? The Northern Zone had never produced a Human King. Most likely, no power could resist the might of the Wang family, right? Chu Zan sent a message to Bao Hongyan, asking her to tell Qin Qian to come to the courtyard. Chu Zan felt that it was necessary to ask Qin Qian about Qin Ying's gender. Was the Great Qin Emperor actually a woman? There were not many records about Qin Ying, but, from the few records, one could feel how domineering the Great Qin Emperor, who had once unified the southern region, was, and how mighty and extraordinary he was. From those few records, the Great Qin Emperor did not seem to be a woman. Inside the Great Qin Imperial Palace, Qin Qian was cultivating. "Your Majesty, Tower Lord Bao has sent over a letter." The maidservant walked in and said respectfully. Qin Qian frowned. "Black Moon Tower's gold-level Tower Lord, Bao Hongyan." She raised her hand and took the letter from her maidservant's hand. She opened it and took a look. Her pretty face changed immediately, and her eyes now displayed an uncertain expression. She waved her hand to get the servant girl to leave. Qin Qian read the letter several times and bit her lips, feeling uneasy. Why did he summon her to meet him? Chu Zan was indeed good-looking, and she also wanted to see him. However, when she thought of Chu Zan's terrifying strength, Qin Qian always dismissed the idea of visiting. She was not a nymphomaniac, nor was she a slut. She knew that visiting him would be akin to inviting danger upon herself. Being an empress was pretty good, so why did she have to go and bow down to him? In fact, she might even become a servant girl. He was not the Great Qin Emperor. However, Qin Qian did not dare to ignore Chu Zan's summons, nor did she dare to refuse. If she refused to go, what if he personally came to Great Qin Imperial Palace? Qin Qian gritted her teeth and changed out of her empress robe. She put on some casual attire and reverted to her cute and shy appearance. She silently left the palace and went to the Chu family's territory to pay her respects to Chu Zan. Chapter 102. I've become a woman, how can I face my brothers? Looking at the obedient Qin Qian, who looked rather shy and nervous, Chu Zan did not beat around the bush and directly asked, "Qin Ying, the Great Qin Emperor, is he a man or a woman?" Qin Qian was stunned. He called her here just to ask this question. Qin Qian answered honestly, "The Supreme Emperor is an unrivaled man." Although he had already guessed it, to hear it actually confirmed, Chu Zan was quite shocked. Holy sh**t. Only these 2 words were sufficient to express what he was currently feeling. Qin Ying was a man. Yet now, he had reincarnated into a woman. No wonder she had a heroic air about her. Was there an accident during the reincarnation process, or did Qin Ying deliberately reincarnate as a woman? It was probably an accident. Chu Zan did not know whether Qin Ying had recovered or retained his memories from his previous life. If he had, how would he feel? Chu Zan could not help but envision this scene in his mind. Qin Ying's former brothers fought their way back into the Asura ancient land when it opened, but, in the end, they discovered that their former big brother had become a valiant and peerless beauty. That feeling would probably be indescribable. What would be even scarier was if one of his former brothers fell in love with Qin Ying. He stopped thinking about it. If he continued to think about it, his imagination would run wild. Chuzan shook his head and discarded some of the distasteful mental images from his mind. At this moment, Chuzan's interest in Qin Ying was piqued, and he was even more interested in the other party than the ancient war against the demons. Qin Qian was dumbfounded. What was wrong with Chuzan? Why did he look so strange after asking her about the great Qin Emperor's gender? Is there anything else? If not, I'll head back. Chuzan's expression made her feel uneasy. Qin Qian only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Chuzan took a deep breath and calmed his chaotic thoughts, saying, "You re-established the great Qin dynasty to prepare for Qin Ying's return. Was that his backup plan?" Qin Qian shut her mouth and did not say a word. "You're no longer afraid of me?" Chuzan enunciated each syllable clearly. Qin Qian's delicate body trembled slightly before she bit her lips and said, "I won't betray the Supreme Emperor." "You're quite loyal for a demonic pet." Chuzan smiled and said. He did not make things difficult for Qin Qian, nor did he plant a soul seal on her to obtain the secrets she knew about Qin Ying's plan. Chuzan believed that Qin Qian was just a pawn in the plan. She would not know too much, and certainly would not have been allowed to play a key role in the plan. "I am not a demonic pet. I am now a descendant of the Supreme Emperor," Qin Qian said stubbornly. Chuzan waved his hand and said, "All right, you can go back." When Qin Qian saw Qin Ying in the future, she would realize that the mighty Supreme Emperor in her heart had turned into a woman. He wondered what she would think about that. The situation around the Asura ancient land was becoming more and more interesting. Qin Qian widened her eyes and fiercely looked at Chuzan a few more times. She did not know when she would see him again after she left this time, so she looked at him a few more times. When the Supreme Emperor returned, she would definitely ask him to capture Chuzan and make him her husband. He was really too good-looking. After Qin Qian left, Chuzan impatiently activated the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to the mark he left on Qin Ying's body. The scene the image projection displayed was still that of that same cliff. Qin Ying was still sitting cross-legged. She pursed her lips tightly, her face expressionless. Her bright eyes were filled with a fierce gleam. A figure flew over and landed on the cliff. The person who arrived was clad in snow-white robes and looked extremely flashy. He had a cultivation base that had reached the 9th level of the Emperor realm. He was already over 200 years old. At this age, in the cultivation world, he was definitely still considered a young man. In addition, the combination of his young age and 9th level Emperor realm cultivation meant that, without a doubt, he was an outstanding heavens blessed. "Cousin, I've found the fiery lava that you've been searching so hard for." The white-robed man took out a small jar and spoke. The moment he opened his mouth, one could already tell what his intentions were. Qin Ying coldly replied. The white-robed man was extremely happy. He placed the jar beside Qin Ying and tried to sit down next to her. A gaze that was as sharp as a knife shot at him. "Cousin, I've gone through a lot of trouble to get you this fiery lava. I've fought hundreds of battles just to get it. I just want to make you happy." The white-robed man put on a lascivious smile. "Cousin, can you smile for me? I'll be satisfied with just one smile." "Zhu Yuanbai, get lost." Qin Ying stood up abruptly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhu Yuanbai clutched his chest with both hands, his face full of satisfaction. "Cousin, you are so dashing even when you are angry. You have moved my heart too much." Huff, huff. Qin Ying was so angry that he almost exploded. His chest rose and fell violently. Zhu Yuanbai's eyes were wide open, staring at Qin Ying's magnificent and undulating chest. "Go to hell," Qin Ying shouted in a delicate voice. A large halberd appeared in her hand, carrying a force of 10,000 tons as she hacked toward Zhu Yuanbai with great momentum. Shua! Zhu Yuanbai's figure flashed and, soon, he was already 100 meters away. He hurriedly fled. "Cousin, you look so charming when you're angry." Ah! Qin Ying was so angry that he swung his huge halberd in all directions. The cliff collapsed immediately. Qin Ying finally calmed down after a long time. He lowered his head and looked at his body. His heart collapsed in frustration once again. Qin Ying, an 8-foot-tall man, actually became a woman. How pathetic, shameful, and hateful. The moment his reincarnated body regained its memories at the age of 18, he happened to be in the middle of bathing. When his hands touched his tall chest, he was filled with emotions. His plan had finally succeeded, and he had finally survived. Wait a minute, there was something wrong with what he was feeling. When he looked down, Qin Ying's state of mind collapsed. Where is my manly body? Why did I become a woman? What exactly went wrong? Why did I reincarnate into a woman's body? He let out an angry roar, but what actually came out of his mouth was a delicate and crisp cry. Where did my roar, which was as loud and powerful as thunder, go? From now on, would he only be able to scream and screech? Qin Ying was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He felt like committing suicide. What was even more difficult for him to accept was that, if all of his old brothers were still alive, how would he face them? During his last moments, he had used the human King Dao weapon to reincarnate into the Luo family. He wanted to borrow the might of the human king's family to grow strong enough to once again fight his way back into the northern zone and kill all of the traitors and enemies, ultimately regaining his throne. As he wished, he had reincarnated into the Luo family. However, he was not reincarnated as a man, but as a woman. He became the daughter of the current head of the Luo family. He was the famous peerless genius of the Luo family, and also the most beautiful person in the eastern zone. I'm AFC King Man. Qin Ying did not understand what had gone wrong. Why did he reincarnate into a woman? After recovering his memories from his previous life, Qin Ying chose not to speak unless it was absolutely necessary. He also did not like to wear women's clothes. As soon as he opened his mouth and heard his crisp voice, he felt like banging his head against the wall and committing suicide. As the day when Asura ancient land would open drew near, Qin Ying started to feel a bit scared. He was no longer the mighty great Qin Emperor. He had become a little girl. How was he going to face his brothers and friends from back then? How was he going to face his enemies from back then? Would he be laughed at and ridiculed to death? He missed his domineering roar of the past, which could make people's hearts tremble. Now, he could still shout, but his roar would make their hearts tremble for an altogether different reason. Chapter 103. I don't want this enchanting body, I want to be a fierce man. Qin Ying held the halberd in her hand. Her eyes were filled with grief. She tightly pursed her lips, she would never speak if she could help it. Every time she heard her own sweet voice, she wished she could commit suicide and reincarnate again. Qin Ying picked up the fiery lava that Zhu Yuanbai had brought over and muttered to herself, I need a powerful body refining technique. Back then, the great Qin Emperor had an unrivaled overlord body and was undefeatable. Back then, he had led his group of brothers to unify the southern region. But now, he had become a woman with a weak body, which even had trouble unleashing the full power of his martial techniques from back then. The Luo family was incredibly powerful and had countless martial techniques. They did not lack powerful martial techniques, and their descendants were outstanding and talented. However, he was still fond of the domineering martial techniques from his previous life. In order to wield these powerful and domineering martial techniques, one required a strong physique. His current body could not be said to be weak. After all, he had the bloodline of the human king running through his veins. It was just that it could not compare to the overlord body from his previous life. This body's talent was focused elsewhere, and was not very suitable for those kinds of domineering martial techniques. After all, he was now a woman. Qin Ying let out a long sigh. He could only rely on treasures like the fiery lava to refine his new body bit by bit. At the same time, he also had to cultivate martial techniques that he was unfamiliar with. His physique could not keep up with his training, nor could it display the full strength of the powerful martial techniques of his previous life. In the end, this affected his overall combat strength. Fortunately, his level of talent in this life was not poor. He could practice the pinnacle techniques of the human king's family to make up for his weaknesses in this regard. Chu Zan took one look at Qin Ying and immediately knew that he had already recovered the memories of his previous life. Fiery lava was a type of scorching hot, extremely destructive, heavenly and earthly treasure. It was usually used to temper the body. Qin Ying probably felt that his current body was too weak, and wanted to rely on body tempering to increase the strength of his body. His body in his previous life was probably unrivaled in terms of physical strength. This could also be seen from the weapon Qin Ying wielded, which was a large halberd. Chu Zan hesitated. Should he appear and trick the other party? Or perhaps even take her in as a disciple? However, when he remembered that Qin Ying, this delicate yet dashing peerless beauty, was actually a man's soul in a woman's body, he felt disgusted. He felt that it was strange. After some time, Qin Ying let out a long sigh again. She turned around and left the collapsed cliff, returning to the Luo family's residence. As the #1 family in the eastern zone, the Luo family was famous. There were many geniuses in the past generations and, in this generation, Luo Ying Qin was their #1 talent. At such a young age, she had already reached the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Her combat strength was unparalleled and, while wielding a halberd, she was unrivaled among those in the same realm. However, she was too cold, aloof and rarely spoke to anyone. She did not display even a tinge of interest in any of her many admirers. In fact, she actively rebuffed them. She was known as the Ice Beauty Luo Ying. There was once a genius from a large family who pursued her doggedly. He even spent a lot of money to invite a respected senior to accompany him to the Luo family to ask for her hand in marriage. In the end, Luo Ying wielded her large halberd and chased that genius for an entire day and a night. She almost hacked him to death. After that incident, there had not been any geniuses who dared to ask for her hand in marriage. Their lives were more important. The Luo family's territory was far larger than the Chu family's. The ancient-looking simple hall was covered with arrays and was heavily guarded. The guards at the door were all Truth Realm cultivators. There was even an Emperor Realm cultivator hiding in the darkness. As expected of the human king's family, Chu's on side. Their ancestors were unparalleled experts who had led the rise of the human race in that zone and ruled over it. Alternatively, their ancestors had helped turn the tide when the human race was in danger, and then led the rise of the human race to expel the foreign races. Only experts with such great achievements were worthy of being called human kings. Every human king had to be a peerless expert. Otherwise, how could they lead the rise of the human race and turn the tide against the foreign races? Qin Ying returned to the Luo family. Along the way, the guards and servants all bowed to her. Greetings, 3rd Miss. In this life, he was the 3rd child of the family. Qin Ying kept a straight face throughout the entire journey and did not reply. Every time he heard them address him as 3rd Miss, he could not help but clench his small fists tightly. He went all the way back to the Luo clan's ancestral residence, and straight back to the small courtyard where he resided. In the Luo family, he was often alone. Before he had regained his memories of his previous life, he had been quite sociable. The change happened because he still could not accept the fact that he had become a woman. Qin Ying suspected that the reason he had become a woman in this life was related to the human king's Dao weapon. This Dao weapon was left behind by the Luo family's human king. Speaking of which, he did have some connection with the Luo family's human king in his previous life. Without that connection, he would not have obtained the human king's Dao weapon. The Dao weapon was in the form of a bracelet. One look at it was all it took for anyone to figure out that it obviously belonged to a woman. It was most likely a gift from the human king to a certain woman. When he returned to his small courtyard, a beautiful woman walked over with a doting expression on her face. Yinger, you're already the strongest amongst your peers. Don't keep pushing yourself. Don't cultivate too hard and damage your body. I understand. Qin Ying's expression was very stiff. He still did not know how to get along with his mother in this life. My dear child, you are a girl. Why are you cultivating a body tempering technique? Our Luo clan has many divine techniques, all of which are stronger than some random body tempering technique. Don't damage your body. Listen to your mother's advice and stop cultivating that body tempering technique, okay? Mother Luo advised gently. In the past, this daughter of hers was very obedient. Her character was good too, and she did not insist on cultivating body tempering techniques. However, she had suddenly changed and become like this. Her heart ached terribly for her daughter. I won't give it up, Qin Ying said firmly. Yinger, why must you insist on tempering your body? As Mother Luo spoke, she pulled Qin Ying's hand into hers and said, look at your skin, look at your figure. How many girls are envious of you? Why do you insist on tempering your body? What if your body is damaged in the process? Qin Ying's heart was on the verge of collapse. I don't want this tender white skin. I don't want this enchanting body. I want to be a fierce man. Damn it, this is so depressing. Mother Luo nagged him for a long time, but Qin Ying kept silent the entire time. He had no idea how to deal with his mother in this life. No matter what, she was his biological mother who gave birth to him and raised him. His soul was still Qin Ying, but his body and bloodline came from his parents. Mother, do you know of any method in this world that can turn a woman into a man? Qin Ying suddenly asked. Mother Luo was stunned. Her expression changed drastically and her face was filled with fear. Yinger, don't scare me. Why would you have such a thought? You are a woman, why would you want to become a man? It's over, it's over. Could it be that you've gone mad? Mother Luo was terrified. Someone come quickly. A figure appeared silently. Mistress, quickly, call for the family head. Quickly, call the elders. Yinger might have gone mad. Looking at his mother's terrified expression, the corners of Qin Ying's mouth twitched. Mother, I haven't gone mad. Are you sure you haven't gone crazy? Why do you want to be a man? Mother Luo always felt that there was something wrong with Luo Ying. Qin Ying's face was full of despair. I was AFC King domineering man. I just wanted to return to my former domineering self. Chapter 104. Just die already. Question mark. The Luo family head and the elders rushed over to check on Qin Ying. They were terrified that she might have really gone mad. At the same time, the matter of Qin Ying wanting to become a man was classified as top secret, and no one present was allowed to leak this information. Fortunately, they were the only ones who heard it, so they were not afraid of the news being leaked. In the end, they all came to the conclusion that the reason why Qin Ying had come up with such a ridiculous idea was definitely because she had little to no contact with men. It was all because she was interested in men's bodies. After all, Qin Ying had always been focused on cultivation. Due to this, Mother Luo specially taught Qin Ying about the differences between men and women. For this reason, she even assigned a few handsome men to Qin Ying's small courtyard. They were all here so she could be exposed to men and familiarize herself with them. His cousin, Zhu Yuanbai, came over excitedly. Qin Ying was on the verge of breaking down. He greatly regretted blurting that out. Chu Zan rubbed his chin. Turning a woman into a man. Wouldn't it be fine to just perform sex change surgery? However, he then remembered that this was a cultivation world. The cultivation of martial artists was related to the Great Tao. There was a saying that yin and yang were determined by the heavens. Rebellion against this order would bring disaster. In other words, if she turned herself into a man, she would be rejected by the Great Tao. Disaster might even befall her and, in the end, she would not be able to comprehend the Great Tao. The soul was actually a condensed body of will. Logically speaking, the gender of the soul would be the same as the body's. In other words, when one was born as a woman, when one condensed one's soul, it was impossible for one to think that they were a man instead of woman. Qin Ying was an exception. In his previous life, he had been a man, and his soul was also that of a man's. However, in this life, his body was that of a woman's. Chu Zan was very curious. When he condensed his soul upon birth, was it determined to be a man's soul or a woman's soul? In fact, it had always been in the state of a man's soul in his previous life. Looking at Qin Ying's appearance, it seemed that he had undergone a complete rebirth as opposed to a simple reincarnation of his soul. His was a true reincarnation that had merged his soul with the Luo family's bloodline. If his soul had been implanted into Luo Ying at birth, he would definitely not be able to hide it from the Luo family's experts. So, in this case, was he a male soul or a female soul? Were the memories and consciousness of his previous life causing him to deny reality? Had he actually condensed a female soul? This was something Chu Zan had no knowledge of whatsoever. Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. He had been observing Qin Ying for a long time, so he had consumed quite a lot of spiritual power. He quickly swallowed a few pills to recover the lost spiritual power. Over the following period of time, Chu Zan spent most of his time observing Qin Ying. He was not even interested in the Black Moon Tower's information anymore. He did not even call for Su Shaner to brief him about the trivial matters happening in the region. How could the things happening in the southern region be more interesting than watching Qin Ying's daily life? Qin Ying once again went to the Luo family's scripture depository to search for body tempering cultivation techniques. However, the cultivation techniques that he could find were all gentler in nature. They were all body tempering cultivation techniques that were suitable for women. If he continued to cultivate them, apart from strengthening his physical body, they would make his figure become even more enchanting. Furthermore, they would highlight the charms of a woman. He could not even find a single wild and violent body tempering technique. Qin Ying's expression darkened. Ever since they discovered that he had the intention of becoming a man, the Luo family head had hidden all of the body tempering techniques that had wild and violent attributes. He had replaced them with cultivation techniques that were specially prepared for females to temper their bodies. He had even gone out of his way to collect quite a number of these cultivation techniques from the outside world, such as the water physique, the boneless serpent physique, and so on. Qin Ying returned to his residence's courtyard. That old dog, Zhu Yuanbai, had already come over to bother him. Cousin, here is some ice-clear jade milk. It has a miraculous effect when it comes to tempering one's body. It can also make your skin tender and white, and exude an enchanting fragrance. Qin Ying clenched his fists tightly. His face was flushed red, and he was so angry that his body trembled slightly. Gah, damn it, I don't want fair skin or to exude an enchanting fragrance. I want to be fierce, domineering, and unyielding. Get lost, Qin Ying roared. Cousin, don't be so angry. This really can make your skin fair and lovely. Zhu Yuanbai's eyes never left Qin Ying. He said emotionally, Cousin, you look so beautiful when you're angry. Qin Ying was furious. He hated this B***starred Zhu Yuanbai the most. If he could beat him, he would have killed him with a swing of his halberd. Cousin, will you marry me? Zhu Yuanbai asked affectionately. If I can marry you, cousin, the child will follow your surname, and I can also change my surname to yours. As long as you agree to marry me. Chu Zan was speechless. This Zhu Yuanbai was the king of the simps, wasn't he? Qin Ying was so angry that his face turned ashen. His delicate body trembled, and his chest heaved up and down violently. Zhu Yuanbai's eyes were as wide as they could be, and he did not even blink as he awaited Qin Ying's response. Just die already. He raised the halberd and attacked Zhu Yuanbai ferociously. This was too depressing. I, Qin Ying, am an 8 feet tall man of great stature. I was extraordinarily powerful back then, but now I'm actually a delicate woman. In the past, when I opened my mouth, my roars and shouts would terrify my enemies. But now, I'm afraid to even open my mouth and speak. He was very depressed. He was afraid that, one day, he would truly feel like a woman and fall in love with a man. As he imagined this scene, Qin Ying felt a chill run down his spine. Wielding his halberd, he chased after Zhu Yuanbai all the way out of the Luo family's territory. Qin Ying had truly been angered to the point of madness. That B***starred actually dared to confess to him. I am also a man. Chu Zan watched this scene with relish. Qin Ying did not stop chasing Zhu Yuanbai, and it seemed like he would not stop until he killed the other party. As he deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror, Chu Zan fell into a state of deep thought. Qin Ying's obsession with finding a powerful body tempering technique reminded him that he had neglected the importance of body tempering. Chu Zan's physical body was naturally very strong, and he did not need to deliberately temper his body. Moreover, he had already comprehended many body tempering techniques. In terms of the strength of his physical body, no one in the same realm could compare to him. However, Chu Zan was thinking of Ding Yu and Wang Luo, his 2 disciples. The cultivation techniques that were compatible with the 2 of them had already been passed on to the 2 of them, allowing them to perfectly display their talent and potential. He had also given them a soul cultivation technique. The only thing missing was a body tempering cultivation technique. As his disciples, they naturally had to be strong in every aspect. How could they be lacking in terms of body tempering? This did not apply to Su Shaner, though. Her Grand Moon mystic body was already extraordinary to begin with. After cultivating the Grand Moon Immortal spell, her physical strength would definitely be ranked among the top of those in the same realm. As such, there was no need to specifically teach her body tempering techniques. Chu Zan looked through the body tempering techniques he possessed and found 2 that were suitable for Ding Yu and Wang Luo. He then summoned Wang Luo and Ding Yu. Ding Yu was preparing to break through to the Truth realm, while Wang Luo was preparing to break through to the Void realm. The 2 of them had been cultivating for several years in the pocket dimension. Master, today, I'll teach you both body tempering techniques. Ding Yu and Wang Luo were pleasantly surprised. They often thought to themselves that, excluding the strength of their physical bodies, it was hard to find someone on the same level as them. After all, the cultivation techniques they cultivated were all extraordinary. Now, if they cultivated the body tempering techniques that their master was about to teach them, how terrifyingly strong would their physical bodies become? It was likely that even the experts who specialized in physical body cultivation would not be able to compare with them. The 2 of them knelt down respectfully. Thank you, Master. Mister, what about me? Su Xian, asked anxiously. You don't need it. Your Grand Moon mystic body is already plenty extraordinary. Moreover, do you want to become a muscular beauty? Chu Zan glanced at her. Forget it then. The moment Su Shaner imagined herself as a hulking, muscled female cultivation, she shivered and trembled. Chapter 105. I, Qin Ying, have fallen. Chu Zan pointed his finger and transmitted a body tempering technique into Ding Yu's mind. I have imparted the firmament sword body technique to you, which just so happens to be in line with your talent and aptitude. When you master this technique, your body will surge with vast sword intent, and divine techniques won't be able to hurt you. Thank you, Master. Ding Yu kowtowed 3 times respectfully. The technique his master taught him was indeed extremely powerful. When one reached the great success stage in this technique, divine techniques would not be able to harm him. Even if he just stood there without fighting back, the other party would not be able to hurt him. It was too powerful. Ding Yu was not as ignorant as before. After interacting with Wang Luo, he now knew that there were countless experts in the outside world. The southern region was just a small corner of this vast continent. The divine realm was the pinnacle of those in the 9 zones and 50 regions. Moreover, divine realm experts were only spoken about in legends. As far as most people knew, heaven realm experts were the continent's top experts. Only the forces with heaven realm experts were considered super factions. After all, the divine realm had only ever existed in legends, and seemed nigh unreachable. Chu Zan pointed with his finger again and transmitted another body refining technique to Wang Luo. I have taught you the 9-turn body tempering technique. 9 becomes 1, and the body will transform 9 times. When you succeed, divine weapons won't be able to harm you. Thank you, Master. Wang Luo kowtowed 3 times respectfully. The body tempering techniques that Chu Zan taught them were based on their individual talents. These body tempering techniques were all rewards from the system. Each one was extraordinary. You can also refine pills to aid your cultivation. Yes, Master. There were countless resources in the pocket dimension, and the one thing it lacked the least was pill refining materials. Wang Luo's current pill refining attainments were no longer the same as before. He had advanced by leaps and bounds. Even before he had managed to reconnect his pill meridians, his understanding of the Tao of alchemy had already been very high. It was just that he was limited by his body's flaws and could not make full use of his talent and knowledge. Now that his body had recovered and he had refined the heavenly void fire, he was like a fish in water. He could refine spirit pills effortlessly, and each and every one of them was of high quality. Wang Luo's talent in alchemy was greater than Chu Yun's, which made sense. After all, he was born with pill meridians. When it came to alchemy, his talent was extraordinary. After passing on the body tempering techniques to the 2 of them, he sent the 2 of them off to continue cultivating. Chu Zan continued to observe Qin Ying. He was considering whether or not he should give a body tempering technique to Qin Ying. He had in his possession a very fierce body tempering technique that Qin Ying yearned for. If he succeeded in cultivating it, Qin Ying might turn into a muscular beauty. Chu Zan felt goosebumps when he imagined Qin Ying's valiant appearance, her beauty combined with the bulging muscles on her body. Her female body and male soul were already enough to make people uncomfortable. If you threw in bulging muscles as well, it was simply. Chu Zan was considering what benefits he could obtain if he taught Qin Ying the body tempering technique. Would the system reward him? Unlikely. However, if he nurtured a muscular beauty, there was a chance that the system would reward him for such a unique achievement. The other key point to consider was, what could Qin Ying give him if he taught him the body tempering technique? Would Chu Zan take him in as a disciple? No way. He was not the kind of disciple he wanted. Would he do it just for fun, so that he could watch Qin Ying rise up amidst the Luo family's resistance? Chu Zan felt that he should continue to observe Qin Ying for a period of time. At the very least, he had to figure out what had happened during the battle in the Asura ancient land. Thinking this, Chu Zan cast his gaze toward the world-purifying glazed pagoda. Mo Tuo had not been fully converted yet, but he was about to. This top expert of the demon race had participated in the battle back then. As such, he should know quite a few secrets about it, right? The conversion progress of Mo Tuo was a little slow. From this, it could be seen that when Mo Tuo was at his peak, he had been very strong. Even though his soul was already weakened, his willpower was still strong, which allowed him to hold on until now. Chu Zan contemplated throwing him into the 2nd level of the pagoda, but quickly gave up on the idea. The power of the 2nd level was a little too strong. He was worried that Mo Tuo's soul would not be able to withstand it and would collapse. If he had a physical body, Chu Zan would have thrown him into the 2nd level immediately. Qin Ying had been chasing Zhu Yuanbai for 3 days. It seemed like he would not rest until he was dead. Zhu Yuanbai was afraid. He was not really afraid of Qin Ying killing him, but rather that she seemed to be really angry. It was an unprecedented feeling. He was afraid that Qin Ying would ignore him in the future, stop seeing him, and stop accepting his gifts. If he could not see his cousin, he would feel that life no longer held any meaning. Cousin, I was wrong. It's all my fault. Don't chase me anymore, cousin. I'll try my best to find you a body tempering technique, okay? Cousin, I'll definitely find you a very, very strong and fierce body tempering technique. Qin Ying stopped chasing after him. Okay, those were your own words. If you can't do it, don't ever appear in front of me again in the future. Of course, cousin, I will definitely live up to my words. Zhu Yuanbai promised. Watching Zhu Yuanbai leave, Qin Ying looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. How sad. I, Qin Ying, have fallen. For the sake of the body tempering technique, I actually had to rely on my beauty to bewitch someone. Qin Ying did not return to the Luo family's territory. Staying in the Luo family's territory made him feel uncomfortable. When the servants met, they would talk about young men and young ladies, which made him feel very aggrieved. As for Mother Luo, she would come over to talk to him about women's affairs every now and then, afraid that he was still possessed by the idea of becoming a man. Qin Ying planned to find a quiet place to cultivate and increase his strength as soon as possible. The southern region's Asura ancient land would open soon. That great battle had caused the battlefield to fall into a spatial crack. Once the laws of heaven and earth were restored in the southern region, the battlefield would reappear. The people from back then would likely also reappear one by one. The things in the Asura ancient land absolutely could not be allowed to fall into the hands of their enemies. In his previous life, he was not able to defeat their scheme, but he could do so in this life. Suddenly, two black-clothed figures appeared. Both were at the 5th level of the Emperor realm. Qin Ying frowned and turned to glance at them, but did not speak. He tried his best not to speak whenever possible. In his previous life, he loved roaring to intimidate his enemies. For this reason, he specifically cultivated the roaring technique. However, in this life, he did not like to roar anymore. His roars came out as tender squeaks. He could not stand it. The black-robed men did not say a word either. Brandishing their sabers, the black-robed men activated their emperor domains and charged toward Qin Ying. Qin Ying held the halberd up. His eyes gleamed coldly as he activated his domain. Boom! The halberd swept out and, with the support of his domain, he blasted away the black-robed men's attack. He frowned. Who were these people who were trying to assassinate him? Were they his enemies from back then? No, no one knew that he was reincarnated into the Luo family. In that case, were they enemies of the Luo family? The Luo family was famous in the eastern zone and possessed a high status. Which force would dare to assassinate a direct descendant of the Luo family? He had not offended anyone, had he? The only one he recalled offending was the one who had come to propose marriage and had been beaten up by him until he cried for his mother and father. However, the other party's faction would never dare to do such a thing. Besides, that faction was still on good terms with the Luo family, so it was highly improbable for them to be the culprits behind this attack. Otherwise, if they were to be exposed, their entire faction would be exterminated. Killing the direct descendants of the human king's family was a great crime. It would not be tolerated by the human race. Even as Qin Ying analyzed this situation, the halberd's attacks never stopped, sweeping ferociously toward his opponents. Although he was weaker than the other party by 2 small realms, he was still not at a disadvantage. His halberd attacks, supported by his domain power, were incomparably tyrannical. Chu Zan watched the fight and could not help but sigh. He felt that Qin Ying was very compatible with that body tempering technique. From his fighting style, it could be seen that Qin Ying was an incomparably wild and fierce person. Moreover, the way he utilized his domain power had reached an extremely high level. Chapter 106, Assassination. Qin Ying's use of domain power had exceeded the comprehension of an ordinary Emperor realm expert. It had reached a very high level, to the point that it had even exceeded what ordinary Supreme Realm experts could comprehend. His domain power could actually be separated. A part of it was attached to the halberd, while another part was attached to the attack. This was unlike an ordinary Emperor Realm expert, who would use their own body as the center as they expanded their domain power to envelop the enemy or resist their enemy's own domain power. Qin Ying's domain seemed to be separated and dispersed. Despite that, it seemed to be more effective and powerful. A single strike imbued with his domain power would be able to break through the opponent's domain energy, causing a flaw to appear in their defenses. Chu Zan watched the battle unfold and gained a new understanding of domain power. So, domain power could be used in such a way. As expected, he was lacking in terms of battle experience. Qin Ying was already gradually suppressing the enemy. Throughout the entire fight, he had not uttered a single word. The black-robed men did not speak either. Occasionally, they would exchange glances with each other. It was obvious that they were anxious. They had not expected Qin Ying to be so strong. Despite having the advantage of being 2 minor realms stronger, and there being 2 of them, Qin Ying was the one suppressing them in combat. Qin Ying frowned slightly. Up until now, there were still no signs of the Luo family's Dao protectors. Was being tested, or had they been lured away by someone? He could not continue wasting time here. Qin Ying's halberd slashed down from the sky, and the domain around him suddenly condensed. Like a huge mountain, it smashed down alongside the halberd. Boom! The 2 black-robed men frantically blocked. However, Qin Ying's halberd did not stop moving, and each additional strike stacked onto the previous one. After 3 consecutive strikes, the black-clothed men could no longer withstand the violent force of the attack, and their domain power started to display signs of collapsing. Blood trickled from the corners of their mouths. Qin Ying's gaze was ice-cold, and his violent aura surged as he continued to attack ferociously with his halberd. His domain power solidified as he attacked, gradually transforming itself into the shape of a halberd, striking down. Poochie! The black-clothed men spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Qin Ying's even more violent attacks followed closely. If this attack landed, the black-clothed men would be heavily injured, they might even die. Right at this moment, a cold gleam of light suddenly flashed by. It seemed to appear out of thin air, targeting Qin Ying's back. HMPH. Qin Ying did not panic in the face of danger. He snorted coldly and continued to strike with the halberd in one hand. He brandished his other fist and punched toward the cold gleam of light that was heading toward him. His pink fist turned golden as he lashed out. Ding! The attack was blasted away. However, more attacks soon came from all directions. A strong sense of danger enveloped Qin Ying. He no longer cared about killing the 2 black-clothed men. He pulled his halberd back, and his domain enveloped the area. At this moment, a cold gleam of light suddenly appeared behind him. It was too close. Qin Ying's expression changed. He twisted his waist and dodged as fast as he could, but he was a step too late. Rip! The clothes under his ribs were torn, and a bloody scar appeared on his fair skin. Qin Ying was furious. His aura surged, and a violent aura swept out in all directions. He was about to use his most domineering technique. Then, he suddenly stopped, and his aura stopped rising. Qin Ying felt extremely aggrieved. He was now a woman. In his previous life, whenever he used this technique, his clothes and armor would be torn to pieces, and he would rely solely on his domineering body to defend against countless attacks. However, he was a woman now. There was no way he could fight naked. He had a powerful domineering technique, but could not use it. It was a mistake. He should have taken a top-tier spiritual armor from the Luo family's treasury and put it on, so as to avoid exposing his body when he used the technique. Qin Ying was now completely surrounded. 4 black-clothed men, who were wielding slender longswords, were advancing toward him. The 2 black-clothed men who had attacked first and attracted his attention had already fled to nurse their injuries. Qin Ying glanced coldly at these 4 black-clothed men. Their figures seemed illusory, as if they could disappear and conceal themselves at any time. Assassins. These were cultivators who specialized in assassination techniques. Each one had reached the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. It seemed like they had meticulously set up this trap. Qin Ying. Qin Ying frowned as he wondered if this matter had anything to do with Zhu Yuanbai. However, when he reviewed Zhu Yuanbai's actions, including from before the time he regained the memories of his previous life, he was certain that there was nothing wrong with Zhu Yuanbai. Moreover, Zhu Yuanbai had no reason to assassinate him. Unless, of course, he deliberately set up this trap to become the hero who came to save the damsel in distress. Thinking of this possibility, Qin Ying's mood turned sour. I hope I'm overthinking things. If not, I'll chop you up sooner or later. Qin Ying gritted his teeth. The figures of the black-clothed men began to fade away. Qin Ying snorted coldly. When he had risen to power in his previous life, he had survived countless assassination attempts. He had found himself in situations more dangerous than this one countless times. Qin Ying was very experienced in dealing with assassins who were good at hiding. Just as the assassins were about to hide, Qin Ying pounced and charged at one of the assassins. His halberd struck the assassin fiercely. Ding! The slender sword in the assassin's hand diverted the blow and his body disappeared. The other 3 people hid the moment Qin Ying attacked. Petty tricks. Qin Ying snorted coldly. Was concealing themselves like this a big deal? Back then, when he had risen to power, he had faced countless assassinations. He was also good at concealing himself. In fact, he was better at it than most assassins. He had once used this to kill many assassins. Qin Ying continued to charge forward. His halberd swept out in all directions. Even though he could not see the enemy, he continued to attack. Boom! Smoke and dust flew everywhere. The trees turned into dust and the ground below him cracked. Amidst the smoke and dust, Qin Ying's figure also disappeared. He indeed has some tricks up his sleeve. Chu Zan was glued to the image projection. His eyes shone with golden light. Regardless of whether it was Qin Ying or the assassins, there was no hiding from his sight. Heavenly golden divine eyes. Qin Ying was indeed famous for good reason. Within an extremely short period of time, he determined the advantageous position, concealed his figure, and restrained his aura. He was even better at hiding himself than the 4 assassins. Now, it was down to who was more patient. Generally speaking, assassins were more patient, especially when they held the advantage. However, Qin Ying was not an ordinary emperor realm expert. He was a direct descendant of the Luo family. The longer they dragged things out, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Once the experts of the Luo family arrived, the assassins would definitely die and the assassination would fail. In terms of patience, Chu Zan felt that Qin Ying was superior. After all, he was an old monster with rich experience. In his previous life, when he rose to power, he had likely experienced countless dangers like this. As expected, the assassins could no longer hold themselves back. One of them deliberately revealed a flaw, trying to bait Qin Ying into making a move. However, Qin Ying was an experienced person. How could he be fooled by such tricks? He held back and did not make a move. In the end, all 4 assassins revealed themselves and looked at each other. Could it be that Qin Ying was not hiding nearby, but had used a secret technique to escape? It was very possible. The assassination had failed. Just as the assassins were about to leave, Qin Ying made his move. He swung his large halberd at them. This attack could be said to represent Qin Ying's current full strength. Boom! The assassin who was attacked did not even have the time to muster a defense before he was killed by the halberd. After Qin Ying's first attack succeeded, his second attack swept toward the second assassin. Boom! He dealt a heavy blow to the other party. Not wanting to give the other party the chance to conceal himself, he pounced forward and launched another attack. Boom! Chapter 107, The Powerful Human King's Family. Qin Ying counter-attacked aggressively, destroying the bodies of the 2 assassins. Only their soul managed to escape, and even then in a severely injured state. The other 2 assassins escaped. After his surprise attack succeeded, Qin Ying also quickly left. The situation was unclear, and he did not want to risk falling into danger. Chu Zan sighed. As expected of a reincarnated old monster, his methods were brilliant and ruthless. The 2 assassins seemed to have escaped with their souls, but in reality, Qin Ying had already used a secret technique to trace the aura of the other party's souls. This was for the purpose of tracking them down. He was planning to find out where these assassins were from. Seeing how skilled Qin Ying was at using that technique, it was likely that he had used it many times in the past. A character who had almost unified the northern zone and southern region was not simple indeed. The assassination attempt on Qin Ying enraged the Luo family. The central region of the eastern zone was thrown into a state of turmoil, and it seemed as though the incident would end up affecting the entire eastern zone. This was the first time Chu Zan witnessed the strength of a human king's family. Not only did the Luo family send out their experts, but all the major powers in the central region received a letter from the human king's family, and promptly sent out their experts as well. Qin Ying relied on the aura tracing technique he had placed on the souls to lead the Luo clan's experts to the location of the assassin's hideout. They continued to investigate the location. Zhu Yuanbai was incensed. He chased after the assassins everywhere. He was determined to find the mastermind behind all of this and take revenge for Qin Ying. In the central region of the eastern zone, a storm was brewing and a great battle between heaven realm experts broke out. The might of the human king's family was once again revealed. With their tyrannical and powerful strength, they killed a heaven realm expert. However, they were still unable to find the mastermind, and only eliminated that assassin organization. They did not even know why Qin Ying had been targeted. Chu Zan finally understood why Qin Ying had chosen to reincarnate into the Luo family. Moreover, it was not as simple a matter as his soul being reborn. He directly underwent a rebirth and merged the Luo family's bloodline into his own. He wanted to use the human king's family as a platform to develop and eventually return triumphantly to the southern region of the northern zone. With the powerful strength and backing of the human king's family, Qin Ying might indeed be able to defeat his enemies and take revenge. Seeing the strength of the human king's family, Chu Zan's motivation was reignited. Even with his current strength as a 6th-level Supreme Realm cultivator, he was still too weak. Even if he reached the Heaven Realm, it was nothing worth shouting about. After all, above the Heaven Realm, there was the legendary Divine Realm. The cultivation technique that Chu Zan cultivated even surpassed the Divine Realm, which meant that there was an even stronger realm above the Divine Realm. In the 9 zones and 50 regions, the Desolate Ancient Zone was the one zone that was filled with mystery. It was likely that the Divine Realm experts and above were all in the Desolate Ancient Zone. Also, the Luo family was not the only human king family. In addition, this was only considering the powerful forces the human race had. Other powerful races would also have their own super factions, such as the demon race. After the assassination attempt, Qin Ying basically moved around within the Luo family's territory. The place he frequented the most was that same cliff. The collapsed cliff had already been restored. It was Zhu Yuanbai who had restored the cliff. Qin Ying had been searching for a body tempering technique related to an overlord or tyrant. The body tempering technique that Zhu Yuanbai had found for him still lacked the domineering aura that he needed. Without a strong physical body, he could not withstand the overlord technique of his previous life. He had undergone rebirth, but he did not inherit the overlord body of his previous life, so he was unable to fully utilize the technique. Chu Zan did not appear either, as he was still unsure as to how to deal with Qin Ying. The Great Qin Emperor was a famous figure who had once unified the southern region. However, that same person was now a valiant beauty. After finding out that he was a man inside, Chu Zan found the contrast between his beautiful face and male soul quite strange. Chu Zan had not decided yet. Should he try to trick him into becoming an in-name disciple, or just an errand boy? Trying to trick him into becoming an errand boy seemed to be disrespectful of his previous achievements. However, having such a strange in-name disciple under him would also feel quite weird. Before he decided how to treat Qin Ying, Chu Zan would not teach him the body tempering. Chu Zan was also waiting for Mo Tuo's conversion process to finish so that he could better understand Qin Ying's character. After all, Mo Tuo was an expert from the same generation as Qin Ying. He was an expert from the demon race who had invaded the southern region, so he likely knew about the Great Qin Emperor to some extent. A month later, Ding Yu and Wang Luo had been cultivating in the pocket dimension for over 30 years. Their strength had increased greatly. Their body tempering cultivation had also improved quite a bit. Wang Luo had completed his training. Su Shan'er's strength had also risen to the peak of the Truth Realm, and she was in the process of breaking through to the Emperor Realm. Chu Zan did not plan to let them break through to the Emperor Realm in the pocket dimension. After all, it was just a pocket dimension. They could still break through small realms inside there, but it would be better for them to break through a major realm in the real world. Chu Zan began to construct a special domain in the universe space. He directly circumvented the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region and instead guided the laws of the Great Tao into the special domain. He used his soul to guide the Great Tao, making the laws in the universe space special domain perfect. They would then be able to directly communicate with the laws of the Great Tao in the universe space and break through to the Emperor Realm. Only Chu Zan had the ability to circumvent the laws of heaven and earth and directly communicate with the laws of the Great Tao to break through. Breaking through to the Emperor Realm by comprehending the laws of the Great Tao was undoubtedly better. As their cultivation levels increased, it would be easier for them to comprehend the Great Tao. The power of their domains would naturally be stronger too. Su Shan'er still needed some time to break through, and was waiting for the right opportunity to appear. Ding Yu was already at the 9th level of the Truth Realm. Wang Luo had also stepped into the 1st level of the Truth Realm. After all, they had already cultivated in the pocket dimension for more than 30 years, and both were top-notch heavens blessed, so their cultivation speed would naturally be fast. Had it not been for the fact that they were constantly consolidating their foundations and spending a lot of time on body tempering, their cultivation speed would have been even faster. The benchmark for a top-notch genius was the 100-year Emperor Realm. Of these 100 years, most of the time was spent stuck just before the Emperor Realm. Cultivators were constantly accumulating the cultivation while looking for an opportunity to break through. Usually, geniuses would be able to break through to the peak of the Truth Realm in 20 to 30 years. The rest of the time was spent preparing to break through to the Emperor Realm. The southern region was barren, and the laws of heaven and earth here were incomplete. Therefore, cultivation in this region was slower. In the past, reaching the 100-year truth realm benchmark was considered a top-notch genius in the southern region. Now, as the laws of heaven and earth gradually recovered, the cultivation speed of everyone here was also increasing. Chuzan also noticed that, as the process of recovery of the laws of heaven and earth progressed, it was easier for cultivators to comprehend the laws and break through realms. The information from the Black Moon Tower had already indicated that the strength of the cultivators of the southern region was increasing. This was especially true for the younger generation. Their aptitude was better, their cultivation speed was faster, and it was easier for them to break through realms. Su Shaner was accumulating her foundation and waiting for an opportunity to break through, so she was spared the responsibility of organizing the information for Chuzan and briefing him. Moreover, Chuzan had placed most of his attention on Qinying, so he was not too interested in the happenings around the South Province. Qinying was bitterly cultivating, so there was not much to see nowadays. Chuzan was bored, so he picked up a document detailing some important pieces of information from the Black Moon Tower and started reading. The ancient ruins of Baisheng Mountain are about to open. Baisheng Mountain is an ancient power. There was a heaven realm expert presiding over it, but he was killed in the war and the sect was trapped in a spatial crack. The information was about an ancient ruin that had recently appeared in the southern region. The ancient ruins of Baisheng Mountain. The once powerful sect was trapped in a spatial crack after the war with the demons, and its inheritance was lost. Now, as the laws of heaven and earth slowly recovered, the ancient ruins of the Baisheng Mountain sect had made its appearance. Chapter 108. The Ruins of Baisheng Mountain. Chuzan's interest was piqued when he saw this information. The appearance of the ruins of Baisheng Mountain meant that a fortuitous encounter had appeared. A large sect that once had a heaven realm expert was trapped in a spatial crack. There should be an inheritance left behind in its ruins, right? How could the various powers in the southern region not be tempted? Chuzan continued to read the document. The sects and empires of the southern region had already sent experts to the ruins of Baisheng Mountain. They were waiting for the ruins to fully open before entering to compete for the inheritance and treasures. Seeing as it was an ancient ruin of a powerful sect, there had to be emperor-level artifacts inside. Perhaps there might even be divine artifacts inside. The Great Qin dynasty's foundation was still a bit lacking. However, by cooperating with Nine Swords Mountain, coupled with the fact that the Qin, Zhao, and He families had digested the foundation left behind by their ancestors, they were able to send quite a few Truth Realm experts. The strongest among them had already reached the 7th level of the Truth Realm. Since the ancient ruins of Baisheng Mountain had appeared, the Great Qin dynasty had naturally participated. Moreover, they were cooperating with Nine Swords Mountain. The great Empress Qin Qian even personally went to the border to take charge so that she could personally receive the treasures. With the current situation in the southern region, Qin Qian was already the strongest person below the emperor realm. The evil imperial court and the Great Qian dynasty were naturally unwilling to be left behind. Dozens of sects and forces, big and small, gathered around the ruins of Baisheng Mountain. They were all waiting for the ruin to open. Several battles had already taken place. Several Unity Realm experts had fallen. Naturally, people from the Black Moon Tower were also present. How could they be absent from such a big event? Chuzan decided to intervene. After all, participating in the exploration of the ruin might trigger a system reward inadvertently. He could not leave the small courtyard, but he had disciples. Ding Yu was a 9th level Truth Realm cultivator. Even a half-step Emperor Realm expert might not be his match. The power of the heaven-reaching sword technique was sufficient to kill those stronger than him. Moreover, Ding Yu's sword Dao talent was top-notch. His affinity with the heaven-reaching sword technique was perfect, which made it even more powerful. Wang Luo was only at the 1st level of the Truth Realm, so he would not join in the fun for now. Moreover, he was busy refining pills and tempering his body. There was another most important reason behind this decision. Ding Yu was the son of fate of the southern region. In that sense, the treasures in the ancient ruins here were tailor-made for him. It was also a stage for Ding Yu to become famous. It was time for Ding Yu, the son of fate of the southern region, to show off. The treasures in the ancient ruins might be very ordinary to Chuzan, and he would not care about them at all. Ding Yu, who had his horizons broadened, probably would not care too much about them either. However, they were still treasures. Even if they were given to the Chu family, it was better than giving them to someone else. Chuzan summoned Ding Yu. Master, Ding Yu bowed respectfully. Chuzan handed him the information and said, "Take a look." Ding Yu took a look at the information, and his eyes flashed with a bright gleam. He became excited. He had been betrayed by his childhood sweetheart and suffered humiliation from his fellow Nine Swords Mountain sect disciples. In the end, he was directly expelled and disappeared from sight in a sorry state. He had been holding back his anger the whole time. He had worked hard to cultivate and become stronger. He wanted nothing more than to show up in front of them and slap their faces. He wanted to make those who looked down on him in the past feel regret. How long had it been since he was expelled? He was now at the 9th level of the Truth Realm. His comprehension of Sword Tao was so high that it was not an exaggeration to say that no one from Nine Swords Mountain could defeat him. The sole exception to this was if there was an Emperor Realm expert. Nine Swords Mountain was famous for its Sword Tao, and it was the #1 sword sect in the southern region. As an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain, he would use his Sword Tao to defeat Nine Swords Mountain and shove their faces into the ground. Just thinking about it made him excited. He had been waiting for this opportunity and, now, the time had finally come. The Baisheng Mountain ancient ruin had appeared, and all of the major forces of the southern region were participating in its exploration. All of the famous experts of the southern region would make their appearance here. He, Ding Yu, wanted to subdue Nine Swords Mountain in front of all of the major forces of the southern region. Ding Yu believed that he had almost figured out the second stage of the Way of the Sword. It was time to test his Sword Tao. "Master, I want to go to the Baisheng Mountain ruin," Ding Yu said respectfully. "Go then. With your strength, there aren't many who can rival you in the southern region." Chuzan nodded. After a brief pause, he said, "Sword cultivators are unyielding. You were once expelled, it's time for you to make a name for yourself and take back your dignity. The major forces of the southern region will definitely restrict some people from participating in the exploration of the Baisheng Mountain ruin. As an itinerant cultivator, you will definitely be obstructed. However, all obstructions are meaningless in the face of absolute strength. I won't make any arrangements for you. You will find a way to enter the Baisheng Mountain ruin by yourself." What Chuzan wanted was for Ding Yu to show off at the Baisheng Mountain ruin and slap everyone's faces. If his disciple made a name for himself and did well, would he trigger the system's reward? The probability of this was very high. "Yes, Master." Ding Yu was extremely excited. Chuzan reminded him again, "The treasures inside the ruin might be ordinary, but you shouldn't let others have them. If you encounter them, you can fight for them. It's up to you." "Don't worry, Master. As long as I want it, no one can take it away," Ding Yu said seriously. "Go." Chuzan waved his hand. "Yes, Master." Before Ding Yu left, he ran into the pocket dimension and asked Wang Luo for some pills. After all, he had to face a lot of battles, and might even be ganged up upon. Naturally, he had to prepare some healing pills, spiritual power recovery pills, and other kinds of pills. There were countless treasures inside the pocket dimension. Wang Luo's alchemy skills were excellent, and he could already refine Emperor-level pills with his Truth Realm cultivation. After taking the pills, he stored the divine sword into his body and left the Chu family's territory with a high-grade treasured sword, heading to the Baisheng Mountain ruin. Ding Yu had already successfully refined the divine sword given by Chuzan, but it was not easy to use it. The divine sword was still a divine sword after all, and it had the ability to protect its master on its own volition. At critical moments, he could also rely on the divine sword to display its powerful strength. This was his trump card. The high-grade treasured sword was something that Ding Yu had been using for practice this entire time. After he nurtured it, it seemed to be on the verge of transforming into an emperor-level weapon. After cultivating the firmament sword body, the sword intent in Ding Yu's body grew on its own. It was still a good distance from transforming and surging with vast sword intent, but it was sufficient to nurture the divine sword. It was enough to transform a high-grade artifact into an emperor-level artifact. The only difference was that the time needed to nurture it. Baisheng Mountain was located in the north of the southern region, at the center of a stretch of a barren mountain range. This was where Baisheng Mountain's sect had once been located. During the Great Battle, Baisheng Mountain's sect had been trapped in a spatial crack. The surrounding mountains had been worn down by the Great Battle. Thanks to that, they were barren and lifeless, devoid of any flora and fauna. As time passed, traces of the Great Battle faded away, and vegetation had started to grow here in the past 100 years. Even so, the vegetation was sparse, and the spiritual energy here was chaotic. There was no village or town within a 10,000 li radius of this place. No demon beasts were willing to stay in such a place either. The surrounding mountains were only filled with ordinary wild beasts. A month ago, the illusory image of a ruin had suddenly appeared in the barren mountain range, immediately attracting the attention of cultivators. According to records, this place had once been the headquarters of the Bai Sheng mountain sect, and the appearance of a powerful sect's ruin naturally took the southern region by storm. Countless factions had arrived, each wanting to obtain a great opportunity. The few mountains closest to the ruin had already been occupied by the various factions. Nine Swords Mountain and the Great Qin Empire each occupied a mountain. The evil Imperial Court, Heavenly Cauldron Mountain, and the Great Qian Dynasty each occupied a mountain as well. There were also other mountain peaks occupied by other major forces. The weakest had experts at the third level of the Truth Realm and above. Chapter 109, Gathering of Experts. Currently, of the major forces of the southern region, only the Floating Flower Pavilion had yet to arrive. The Floating Flower Pavilion was also the only all-female sect in the southern region. Its members were extremely powerful and the cultivation techniques they cultivated were extremely profound. No faction dared to ignore the existence of the Floating Flower Pavilion. Hence, even though no one from the Floating Flower Pavilion had arrived, all of the major factions tacitly left behind a mountain peak for them to occupy. No one dared to occupy that mountain peak. Whoever occupied it would be expelled and even killed as an example. The women from that sect were beautiful, but also ruthless. In fact, other than the three empires and three sects, the other powers were worried that their own mountain peak would be taken over by the Floating Flower Pavilion. If the Floating Flower Pavilion took a fancy to their mountain peak, they would give it up immediately. The mountains were not far from each other, and it was not a huge mountain range. It was just that some of the peaks were closer to Bai Sheng Mountain. As for the quota to enter Bai Sheng Mountain, that had not been released yet. Once the Floating Flower Pavilion's experts arrived, the various factions would start discussing this matter. The Great Qin Dynasty's mountain was adjacent to Nine Swords Mountain and the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. It did not directly face the evil Imperial Court or the Great Qian Dynasty. The leader of the Great Qian Empire was not the king of the Great Qian Dynasty, but rather a refined middle-aged man. He was the prime minister of the Great Qian Dynasty, Lu Pingfeng, one of their three great half-step emperor experts. Lu Pingfeng looked at the Great Qin Dynasty's mountain peak mockingly and said with a smile, "One of the three empires and three sects doesn't live up to its name. They don't even have a 9th-level Truth Realm cultivator." Many people looked toward the Great Qin Dynasty's mountain peak when they heard that. There were not many people from the Great Qin Dynasty present. After all, there were too few Truth Realm experts among their ranks. The only one who could show off was Qin Changfeng, who was at the 7th level of the Truth Realm. Everyone present knew that the Great Qin Dynasty's experts were primarily relying on Nine Swords Mountain to back them up. On the top of the Great Qin Dynasty's mountain peak, Qin Changfeng's expression was unsightly, but he did not exhibit any weakness. He sneered and said, "So what if you have three half-step emperor cultivators? Weren't all of you still defeated by the Great Qin Empress?" Lu Pingfeng's expression darkened as he looked at the evil king of the evil Imperial Court and said with a smile, "Evil king, in the past, there were only 2 empires and 3 sects in the southern region. Now that there's one more empire, do you think we should do something?" This was a direct indication that they wanted to join forces with the evil Imperial Court to target the Great Qin Dynasty. Qin Changfeng's expression turned ashen. Everyone looked at the evil king. The evil Imperial Court had been acting a little strange recently. The evil king, including the old evil king, had actually reorganized the evil Imperial Court and used the law to safeguard the welfare of the lower echelons. It was shocking. It was unbelievable that a wicked cultivation country had stricter laws than the Great Qian Empire. Everyone believed that the evil king and the old evil king had encountered problems with their brains because of their evil cultivation techniques. Heretic cultivators were weird and eccentric, so it was not surprising that they had done such a ridiculous thing. The evil king raised his head arrogantly and looked down on Lu Pingfeng. "Our evil Imperial Court has always been righteous. We will never bully the weak with numbers." "Go to hell," everyone present cursed inwardly. Heretic cultivators were talking about justice and righteousness. What kind of joke was this? Were not all those evil techniques that absorbed the blood essence of cultivators created by the evil king's lineage? The few evil commanders and evil generals behind the evil king all remained silent. They had all gotten used to the evil king's style. They all believed that there was something wrong with the evil kings and the old evil king's brains, and that they had deviated from the nature of heretic cultivators. The little evil king was still normal, though. Although he did not cultivate the evil techniques of the evil imperial court, his nature was truly evil. In terms of perversion and ruthlessness, there were not many people in the entire evil imperial court who could compare to him. When the evil king abdicated and the little evil king ascended to the throne, the evil imperial court would return to normal. They would just have to endure it for a while. There was a limit to how long an evil king could reign, and they would normally not continue their term. No one knew where the evil kings would go after they abdicated. It was very likely that they would leave the southern region and head to other regions to break through to the emperor realm. As for how one could leave the southern region, the only method was to rely on the Black Moon Pavilion, but it would require a huge amount of resources. Not many people had the ability to leave the southern region. Qin Changfang let out a sigh of relief. It was a good thing that the evil king's brain was damaged, as he would not ally himself with the great Qian dynasty. The person presiding over Nine Swords Mountain here was not their sect master, Song Yiming, but an elder. He sat cross-legged on a large rock on the mountain peak and had a sword by his knee. He was a half-step emperor cultivator. First Elder Hong Fei sat atop the mountain peak of the great Qin dynasty. There was a young man standing proudly on Nine Swords Mountain's peak. His handsome face attracted the attention of many young women. It's Ying Jiangkong, the #1 genius of Nine Swords Mountain. He's reached the 9th level of the Truth Realm. He's only about 50 years old, right? It's said that he's the successor for the position of Sect Master of Nine Swords Mountain. You're wrong. Ying Jiangkong has no intention of inheriting the position of Sect Master. He's focused on his sword Dao and wants to be the strongest in Nine Swords Mountain. Many people looked at the proud figure and discussed him animatedly. Among the Nine Swords Mountain squad, there was a beautiful figure who never left Ying Jiangkong's side. The leader of the Heavenly Cauldron Mountains exploration team was also a half-step Emperor Realm cultivator. He looked very old, and his beard was red like a ball of fire. Behind him, a beautiful figure was also staring at Ying Jiangkong. Grandfather, the treasure of the Bai Sheng Mountain will definitely fall into Brother Jiangkong's hands, the woman said with an expression of infatuation. Perhaps, after the matter of this ancient ruin is over, I will choose a day to marry you and Jiangkong, the red-bearded elder said. Yes, I'll leave this matter in grandfather's hands. The woman said with a blushing face. I heard that he is very close to a junior sister of Nine Swords Mountain. The red-bearded elder frowned slightly. Grandfather, I know about her. Brother Jiangkong didn't hide anything from me. Even if he marries her, at most, she would only be a concubine. Brother Jiangkong is so powerful. It's normal for him to have many wives. It's not a big deal for him to marry a concubine. She can serve me. The woman said indifferently. The red-bearded elder did not speak further. Boom! The space around the mountain range shook. Everyone looked over. A dilapidated structure was gradually appearing. At this moment, the ruin looked like a mirage. It would not be long before the ruin was completely opened. Why aren't the women from the floating flower pavilion here yet? The evil king was the first to display his impatience. The others did not speak. It was not wise to provide the floating flower pavilion. After all, those women were petty and easily bore grudges. Only the evil king could behave so fearlessly. He even cursed, the women from the floating flower pavilion are lacking in manners. If they don't come soon, then they shouldn't blame me if I catch a few of their girls to have some fun with some other day. The others continued to turn a blind eye to the matter and allowed the evil king curse all by himself. After all, the relationship between the evil imperial court and the floating flower pavilion was very poor. The evil king was not afraid of offending others either. Others did not have any grudges with the floating flower pavilion, so if they could avoid offending them, they would do their best not to. Those petty women were really not to be trifled with. Suddenly, everyone looked in the direction of the mountain that had been left for the floating flower pavilion. They saw a figure holding a sword in his arms, climbing up the mountain step by step. He seemed to only be a first-level profound realm cultivator. In the eyes of many experts, he was an ant-like existence. However, such a weakling actually climbed up the mountain belonging to the floating flower pavilion, wanting to monopolize a mountain by himself. What gave him the courage to do so? Chapter 110. Woman, stay away from me. Ding Yu became the center of attention the moment he appeared. He held his sword in his arms as he stood on the top of the uninhabited mountain peak. He turned a blind eye to the surrounding gazes. He had hidden his cultivation and kept it at the first level of the profound realm, which made him appear to be very weak. It was as if anyone could crush him to death. On the top of Nine Swords Mountain's peak, Ying Jiankong briefly glanced at Ding Yu. He frowned slightly and immediately stopped paying attention to him. In his eyes, Ding Yu was just a piece of trash who had been expelled from Nine Swords Mountain. A beautiful figure beside him also looked at Ding Yu and frowned. Her eyes were filled with disgust. Ding Yu noticed Ying Jiankong and his childhood sweetheart looking at him. However, at this moment, he felt nothing. He had already broken through the first stage of the Way of the Sword. He had forgotten about his sweetheart. As for the second stage, he believed that he should have reached it as well. He would not treat beautiful women any differently from ordinary people, and would not be swayed by their beauty. Ding Yu was a weakling, at least on the surface. There was no lack of busybodies in this world. Ding Yu had occupied the mountain peak reserved for the floating flower pavilion, so someone immediately took it upon themselves to teach Ding Yu a lesson and curry favor with the floating flower pavilion. A figure flew toward Ding Yu from a mountain not far away. "Kid, this is no place for someone like you. This is the territory reserved for the fairies of the floating flower pavilion. An ant like you will dirty the eyes of the fairies. Come over and wait for the fairies of the floating flower pavilion to punish you." This person was a middle-aged third-level Truth Realm cultivator. The third level of the Truth Realm was considered the weakest among those present from the surrounding big forces. He raised his hand and tried to grab Ding Yu. He wanted to crush all of the bones in Ding Yu's body but, at the same time, also wanted to keep him alive. Everyone looked on coldly. No one stopped him. A weak person coming here was akin to courting death. Everyone thought that Ding Yu would end up in a miserable state but, in an instant, a cold gleam flashed by. The middle-aged man who attacked did not even have the chance to scream. His body was split in half in midair and he died on the spot. Ding Yu still held his sword in his arms and maintained the same posture as before. It looked like he had not even moved an inch. Everyone's expressions turned cold. This included the half-step Emperor realm experts present. The sword gleam had been too fast. They had not been paying much attention to the situation just now, so even the half-step Emperor realm experts had failed to see where the sword gleam had come from. Everyone naturally looked toward Nine Swords Mountain. Floating Flower Pavilion's mountain was next to Nine Swords Mountain's peak. Had an expert from Nine Swords Mountain made a move? Was it the elder or Ying Jiankong? What a fast sword! The elder from Nine Swords Mountain looked at Ding Yu with a cold gaze. Ying Jiankong's pupils shrank and he looked shocked. Ding Yu was the one who attacked. How was this possible? The gorgeous woman next to him also looked at Ding Yu in disbelief. She could not believe that the trash who had been expelled by Nine Swords Mountain actually possessed such strength. Was he not only at the first level of the profound realm? Seeing Nine Swords Mountain's reaction, everyone realized that the sword strike just now had not come from Nine Swords Mountain. Instead, it was that young man who had struck. How was that possible? How old was he? He was much younger than Ying Jiankong. At such a young age, he actually possessed such powerful strength. He was also a sword Dao cultivator. Given his age and strength, he should be even more terrifying than Ying Jiankong, right? Who was he? Interesting. It seems like he obtained an opportunity and became a little stronger. Ying Jiankong chuckled. Trash will always be trash. Even if he relied on a fortuitous encounter to become stronger, this tiny bit of strength is his limit. Everyone looked at Ying Jiankong. He knew that young man. Ding Yu sneered, a piece of trash who only reached the 9th level of the Truth Realm at the age of 50 is trying to trash talk me. The aura around his body surged, and the full extent of his 9th level Truth Realm cultivation was revealed. How old was Ding Yu? Someone so young was already at the 9th level of the Truth Realm. Moreover, his aura was so strong it made many of the veteran 9th level Truth Realm experts present feel that they were inferior. He was such a young 9th level Truth Realm expert. Even if he had relied on a fortuitous encounter to advance his cultivation, his strength was still the real thing. Although Ding Yu had cultivated inside the pocket dimension for more than 30 years, due to the pocket dimension's unique ability, there was a time difference between the time inside and outside. Therefore, Ding Yu's age was still calculated based on his age in the real world. Ying Jiankong's expression darkened, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Ding Yu coldly looked at everyone present and sneered, "Do you think that I, Ding Yu, have obtained a great opportunity? Do you all want to snatch it from me? Hey, are you all worthy? The opportunity that I received is the opportunity to meet my master. In the eyes of my master, all of you are nothing but trash. Pieces of trash who are unworthy of my master." His words were arrogant, overbearing, and made everyone's expressions turn ugly. However, no one tried to make a move. They were all thinking about and trying to figure out the identity of Ding Yu's master. The fact that his master had been able to cultivate a 9th-level Truth Realm expert in such a short time was evidence of how powerful he was. Emperor Realm, did the southern region even have an Emperor Realm cultivator? Was his master an outsider? Those major forces that knew some of the southern region's secrets frowned. At the moment, Emperor Realm experts from other regions were not allowed to enter the southern region. That person from the Black Moon Tower was special, and the Black Moon Tower was very powerful, which was why they made an exception to allow that person to enter the southern region. At this moment, flower petals began to fall from the sky. Colorful flower petals fell from the sky and disappeared without a trace. Everyone's spirits were roused. The people from the floating flower pavilion had arrived. As Ding Yu had occupied the floating flower pavilion's mountain peak, many people perked up. There was probably going to be a good show to watch. In the distance, a graceful figure walked on the air. As she walked over, step by step, beautiful petals followed her and scattered everywhere. These petals were the manifestation of a type of spiritual power, and were not real petals. They were created by the floating flower pavilion's cultivation technique, and also happened to be the usual way they announced their arrival. The person who came was graceful and incomparably beautiful. It's the floating flower pavilion's holy maiden, Han Yingmeng. Many people cried out in surprise. Some of the younger martial artists revealed looks of admiration and adoration. Even Ying Zhangkong's eyes lit up when he saw Han Yingmeng. Only Ding Yu's eyes remained unwavering. No matter how beautiful a woman was, she would not be able to distract him. The second stage of the Way of the Sword dictated that one could not be distracted by a beautiful woman. Ding Yu remembered it well, so no matter how many cries of admiration and adoration were heard from the surroundings, he did not even glance at Han Yingmeng. Han Yingmeng walked over with a charming smile. As she listened to the cries of adulation and adoration coming from the surroundings, the smile on her face grew wider. Step by step, she walked toward the mountain where Ding Yu was at. That was the mountain assigned to the floating flower pavilion. Although there was already one person there, and his strength was not weak, she only thought that he was someone who was trying to curry favor with the floating flower pavilion and help them occupy the mountain. Perhaps he was one of her admirers. Ding Yu frowned, looking at Han Yingmeng who was walking over step by step, his heart felt gloomy. What is she trying to do? Is she deliberately trying to attract my attention? She is smiling so brightly. Is she coming here to confuse me? This woman is detestable. She must be trying to disturb my Tao heart and make me fall in love with her and halt my progress and insight into the way of the sword. I, Ding Yu, want to reach a realm where I have no woman in my heart, where I can draw my sword and kill gods. How can I be disturbed by a mere woman? Han Yingmeng had just placed one foot on the mountain peak when Ding Yu looked at her coldly and said, "Get lost, woman. Stay away from me." Chapter 111. Draw your sword. Han Yingmeng was so angry that she almost puked blood. The petals that were following her instantly disappeared. The surroundings turned silent. Everyone looked at Ding Yu. He was the first person who dared to speak to Han Yingmeng like this. He was also the first male cultivator who had ever told Han Yingmeng to get lost. You're asking me to get lost? Han Yingmeng was furious. The floating flower pavilion had allowed her to lead the way so that she could show off her elegance and charm to the thousands of experts present. In fact, she had already achieved her goal. At the moment she appeared, countless male cultivators had been mesmerized by her graceful figure and her peerless beauty. However, unexpectedly, at the last moment, her hard work was destroyed by this young man's words. Ding Yu's gaze remained cold as he looked straight at her and said, "Vicious woman, don't you dare think about messing with my sword heart. You can't confuse me or lead me astray. The sword is the only thing in my heart. There's no place for you here. Give up." Han Yingmeng was furious. Who were you FC King calling vicious? Who is FC King trying to confuse you? You. Han Yingmeng's aura surged violently. She was so angry that her delicate body trembled. Her tender white fingers pointed at Ding Yu as her killing intent manifested itself. She was the holy maiden of the floating flower pavilion. She possessed outstanding talent and unparalleled beauty. Many men had fallen at her feet. They were willing to go through the depths of hell for her. She did not need to fight for any treasures personally. All she needed to do was to spread the word and men would come to her door trying to please and serve her. For example, Song Pang, the only son of the sect master of Nine Swords Mountain, Song Yiming, had once traveled thousands of miles to deliver treasures to curry favor with her. When had she ever been reprimanded like this? Scram, you can't seduce me. If you don't leave, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Ding Yu's gaze was ice cold as he stared fixedly at Han Yingmeng. This woman, dressed in flowery clothes, had deliberately come over to his mountain peak. She definitely had ill intentions. There was no other reason why she would approach him out of the blue other than to seduce him. Ha, you would never have imagined that I, Ding Yu, had already achieved the second stage of the way of the sword. Your beauty cannot move me or cause my mind to wander. The only thing my heart contains is my sword Dao. You won't be able to mess with my sword heart. Han Yingmeng was this close to going crazy from anger. He dared to say that she had come here to seduce him. This mountain peak belonged to the floating flower pavilion. This person must die. Seeing Han Yingmeng being reprimanded like this, many people were furious. This was a good opportunity to curry favor with her. However, before the others could make a move, Ying Zhengkong walked over. Ding Yu, as an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain, how dare you behave so arrogantly? I, Ying Zhengkong, would like to see what ability a piece of trash like you has. Everyone was stunned. An expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain. Trash. Ding Yu was from Nine Swords Mountain, but had been expelled. Was there a hole in the brains of those people from Nine Swords Mountain? Such a talented person was actually expelled from Nine Swords Mountain. That did not feel right. Since Ying Zhengkong called the other party a piece of trash, there had to be a story behind this situation. Was Ding Yu's cultivation progress related to the opportunity he obtained? Ying Zhengkong landed beside Han Yingmeng and stared coldly at Ding Yu. Ding Yu, kneel down and kowtow to Holy Maiden Han. Beg her for forgiveness, and I'll let you off. Han Yingmeng calmed down slightly. Seeing Ying Zhengkong stand up for her, she felt a little better. She was quite popular, after all. Look, even the top genius of Nine Swords Mountain was standing up for her. Ding Yu looked at Ying Zhengkong with disdain and sneered, Ying Zhengkong, your sword Dao is lacking. Standing up for a woman who has nothing to do with you. What sword or Dao you even cultivating? Ying Zhengkong, I originally thought that your sword Dao might be worth something. However, now that I'm seeing it in person, both you and your sword Dao are just trash. You actually stood up for a woman who seduced me. I, Ding Yu, am ashamed to be associated with you. Master was right. There are thousands of sword cultivators in the world, but only a few are worthy of the supreme sword Dao. Ding Yu's face was filled with arrogance, as if he was saddened by the fact that there was not a single person worth discussing the sword Dao with in the world. Han Yingmeng was infuriated. Her tender white fingers pointed at Ding Yu as she screeched angrily, kill him for me. Kill him, he's gone too far. B-starred, where did you get your self-confidence from? How dare you insinuate that I, Han Yingmeng, would seduce you? Ding Yu, Ying Zhengkong pulled out his sword and the sound of the sword being unsheathed seemed to resonate in the sky. His aura instantly skyrocketed, and it seemed as if his entire person had turned into a murderous sword. Everyone was shocked. Ying Zhengkong was indeed worthy of his status as the top genius of Nine Swords Mountain. His comprehension of the sword Dao had already reached such a state. Although he was only at the 9th level of the Truth Realm, ordinary half-step Emperor Realm cultivators might not be a match for him. The biggest winner of this trip to the Baisheng Mountain ruin would probably be Nine Swords Mountain. Among the younger generation present, not one was his match. This included the Holy Maiden of the Floating Flower Pavilion, Han Yingmeng. Han Yingmeng's expression turned serious. Ying Zhengkong's strength had increased again. The red-bearded elder of the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain was very pleased. This was his future grandson-in-law. I, Ying Zhengkong, would like to experience just how outstanding your sword Dao is then. Draw your sword. Han Yingmeng's figure fluttered as she retreated. Once the battle started, she would be affected if she remained in close proximity to Ying Zhengkong. Ding Yu was still hugging his sword as he coldly looked at Ying Zhengkong. This was the person who had once belittled him to the point that he felt useless. He had fallen into the depths of despair and suffered all sorts of humiliating insults and abuse. His childhood sweetheart had also left him because of this person. Now, it was finally time to step on this insufferably arrogant genius of Nine Swords Mountain and beat him to the ground. Nine Swords Mountain will soon know that I, Ding Yu, possess an unparalleled sword Dao. I, Ding Yu, will have no woman in my heart. When I draw my sword, it will slay a god. One day, I will wield my sword and slay gods. I will reach the pinnacle of the supreme sword Tao. Ying Zhangkong's heart was boiling with anger. Ding Yu's contemptuous attitude had aroused his fury. As the number one genius of Nine Swords Mountain, he had always been invincible among those in the same realm ever since he started cultivating. Not one person in the same realm had ever been able to defeat him. This would not be the first time that he had crossed one or two small realms to kill his enemies. As for Ding Yu, he actually looked down on him so much that he did not even bother to unsheath his sword. Arrogant, Ying Zhangkong took a deep breath and calmed himself down. His sword vibrated, a cold gleam flashed, and his sharp aura revealed itself, reducing the few plants on the mountain to dust. A sword gleam appeared in the sky. All of the experts present felt a chill run down their spine as they stared at Ying Zhangkong's sword. Too powerful. Lu Pingfeng's expression turned heavy. Nine Swords Mountain was too powerful, and it was likely that the Great Qian dynasty would have to make concessions because of this. Otherwise, the Great Qian dynasty would not give way on account of the Great Qin Empress alone. The Great Qin dynasty would not have been able to establish themselves and stabilize their territory either. Everyone was amazed by Ying Zhangkong's strike. He was indeed worthy of being the number one disciple of Nine Swords Mountain in the southern region. None of the half-step Emperor realm experts would dare to underestimate him after seeing this strike. Ding Yu was dead for sure. They were both at the 9th level of the Truth Realm, but their strengths were vastly different. No matter how strong Ding Yu's sword Dao was, could it surpass Nine Swords Mountain? Nine Swords Mountain, it was the number one sword sect in the southern region. Their legacy had been passed down since ancient times. Suddenly, all of the experts sensed an unremarkable sword gleam flash by and disappear. Ying Zhangkong's sharp sword gleam shattered, and the unparalleled sword strike disappeared without a trace. A gentle breeze blew past, and the experts felt that the gust of wind had brought with it an unprecedented sharpness, as if it was going to slice a person in half. It was actually a thread of sword intent. Chapter 112, Defeating a Chosen One with a Single Sword. A deathly silence ensued. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Ying Zhangkong had been defeated. His sword-wielding hand hung by his side, and blood gushed out from his shoulder, dyeing his clothes red. His facial expression was lifeless, as if unable to accept this result. On the other hand, Ding Yu still held his long sword and stood proudly. He stood alone in the midst of the experts and looked down on them. Gulp! Even the half-step Emperor realm experts present were stunned. That sword strike had been too fast. It was so fast that they only caught a brief glimpse of it before the sword was sheathed again. They did not even see clearly that sword strike. By the time they blinked, Ying Zhangkong had already been defeated. Lu Pingfeng's eyes flashed with greed as he stared at Ding Yu. He wanted nothing more than to rope him over to the Great Qian dynasty's side. As an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain, how could he not hate the Nine Swords Mountain? Lu Pingfeng could use him to pin down Nine Swords Mountain. Even though he was a 9th-level Truth Realm cultivator, defeating Ying Zhangkong with one strike meant that he was a threat to even half-step Emperor Realm cultivators. To be honest, Lu Pingfeng knew that he had no chance of beating Ding Yu in a fight. The people from the other forces were also having various thoughts. Nine Swords Mountain's elder, who was sitting cross-legged on a big rock, stood up and looked at Ding Yu with a serious expression. Nine Sword Mountain's number one disciple, Ying Zhangkong, had actually lost to an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain. This was undoubtedly a ruthless slap on Nine Swords Mountain's face. It would even become a joke in the cultivation world, that Nine Swords Mountain was blind and had expelled a true peerless genius. Ying Zhangkong's lips trembled with disbelief. After a long while, he raised his head and stared at Ding Yu. I lost. That's impossible. You must have used some kind of secret treasure. Ha! Ding Yu smiled contemptuously. You can't accept your loss. I used a secret treasure. Did you even see my sword strike? Clang! A sword gleam flashed past. Before Ying Zhangkong could react, a sword was already pressed against his throat. Fast. It was so fast that he could not react in time. Ying Zhangkong's face turned ashen. He had really lost. He had lost to an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain, who he had regarded as a useless piece of trash. How ridiculous was this? He would eventually be treated as a joke in the cultivator world. Ding Yu, stop! A woman angrily rebuked him from the top of Nine Swords Mountain's peak. Ding Yu's heart did not waver at all. He did not even turn his head. He completely ignored that angry rebuke. At this moment, he realized even more deeply that the 3 stages of the way of the sword that his master had imparted to him were extremely profound. The person he loved would only bring him harm. It was indeed true. Just look, she had rebuked him angrily. If he had not forgotten about his sweetheart, he would definitely have felt cold, sad, indignant, and distracted after being rebuked like this. Turning his head back to look at that person in this situation would undoubtedly be extremely dangerous, and might even get him killed. I, Ding Yu, have already broken through the first stage of the way of the sword and have forgotten about my sweetheart. Trying to mess with my heart. Dream on. Ding Yu stared at Ying Jiankong and said, "Do you know why you lost to me?" "Why?" Ying Jiankong looked at him blankly. "Because you have a woman in your heart." Ying Jiankong, Han Yingmeng, everyone. Everyone was stunned. Ying Jiankong had indeed lost to you, but what did that have to do with a woman? Could it be that he had stolen your childhood sweetheart? Ding Yu sheathed his sword and looked at Ying Jiankong with disdain. A woman will only affect the speed at which you draw your sword. Ying Jiankong, Han Yingmeng, everyone. What does this have to do with a woman? Ying Jiankong took a deep breath and asked. He felt that Ding Yu was mocking him. He was definitely being mocked for having stolen Ding Yu's childhood sweetheart, yet being defeated by him in the end. This is the difference between you and me. This is the reason why you are unable to comprehend the Supreme Sword Tao. You have a woman in your heart, and you have a woman by your side. Your heart is burdened and is full of hesitation. As such, your sword is slow and not fierce enough. Therefore, you lost. Ding Yu held his sword in his arms and looked down at him. Ying Jiankong was silent for a moment. Was that really the case? Was it because Han Yingmeng was by his side? Did he not display his full strength when he attacked to avoid accidentally hurting her? It was possible. With this thought in mind, Ying Jiankong turned his head to look at Han Yingmeng and said, "Move further away from me. I will try again." Han Yingmeng, her pretty face turned red with anger. What did Ying Jiankong mean by that? Was he implying that she was a hindrance? B****. She glared hatefully at Ding Yu. It was all this B****'s fault. He had gone too far. Her graceful figure fluttered as she retreated. Ying Jiankong took out some medicinal pills and consumed them to recover his energy and heal his injuries. Ding Yu just continued looking at him indifferently, waiting for him to make his second attempt. He did not want to kill Ying Jiankong. There was no meaning in killing him. He wanted to become a huge barrier to Ying Jiankong's sword Tao. He would make Ying Jiankong hate him, but be completely helpless. The latter would want nothing more than to kill him, but would be completely powerless to do nothing about it. He wanted to become Ying Jiankong's inner demon. Every time he recalled that the piece of trash who he had once humiliated had left him far behind, and that no matter how he chased after him, he would never reach him. He would live in torment daily, wallowing in self-mockery and self-pity. After half a day, Ying Jiankong's injuries had basically healed. His strength had once again recovered to its peak. In addition, the rest of the Floating Flower Pavilion's exploration team. Their leader was a beautiful woman who was also a half-step Emperor realm expert. Looking at the mountain peak that was occupied by Ding Yu, her expression darkened. She was about to make a move to expel Ding Yu. Han Yingmeng hurriedly stopped her. Ding Yu was too powerful. If the Floating Flower Pavilion offended such a strong man with endless potential, there would be endless trouble in the future. It was not the only mountain peak there, after all. Moreover, even if she attacked, she might necessarily be able to beat Ding Yu. The half-step Emperor Realm Elder of Nine Swords Mountain did not attack either. It was precisely because he was not confident. Otherwise, he would have made a move long ago to eliminate Ding Yu. As an expelled disciple, he was a future threat to the safety of Nine Swords Mountain. The Floating Flower Pavilion chased away one of the other forces and occupied the mountain next to the one Ding Yu was on. At this moment, Ying Jiankong drew his sword again. His aura was condensed but contained. He was like a sharp sword that had not been unsheathed. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Even though Ding Yu was simply holding the longsword in his arms and ignoring him, he forced him to calm down. Impatience would only confuse his heart. This time, I won't lose so easily to you. Ying Jiankong was filled with confidence. Ding Yu was still looking at him with contempt. As the wind blew past, the mountain peak where Ding Yu was at was suddenly enveloped by a strong killing intent. That's the sword intent of the one-sword technique of Nine Swords Mountain. Lu Pingfang's expression became solemn. Sword intent. The evil king's expression was solemn as well. Ying Zhangkong was condensing his sword intent in preparation to display the One Sword technique, which was Nine Swords Mountain's signature technique. One Sword technique. After using it, his entire body would enter a state of weakness, and he would need to rest for a period of time to recover. However, in return, this sword was extremely powerful. In the same realm, no one had been able to block the One Sword technique of Nine Swords Mountain. Moreover, Ying Zhangkong was constantly gathering power and condensing sword intent. The longer he did, the greater the power of this sword. This was not the One Sword technique that was normally used in combat. This was its true maximum strength. Chapter 113, Sword Intent Manifestation. Ying Zhangkong was gathering his power and condensing his sword intent. On the other hand, Ding Yu was still holding his treasured sword and standing proudly there with a disdainful attitude. Judging from their attitude toward the duel, it was obvious who was the superior one. The expression of the Nine Swords Mountain Elder was extremely grave. Looking at Ding Yu's disdainful attitude, his heart began to sink. Even if Ying Zhangkong used the One Sword technique, he might not be able to beat Ding Yu. Victory and defeat seemed to have been decided. There was no suspense left in this fight. What was left to see was whether Ying Zhangkong's One Sword technique could injure Ding Yu. He would use this strike to determine Ding Yu's actual strength. If he could kill him, the Nine Swords Mountain Elder would not miss that golden opportunity to attack. How could an expelled disciple not harbor hatred toward Nine Swords Mountain? Lu Pingfeng became more and more determined to get Ding Yu to join the Great Qian dynasty. The stronger Ding Yu was, the more beneficial he would be for the Great Qian dynasty if they managed to rope him in. With Ding Yu holding down Nine Swords Mountain, the Great Qian dynasty would be able to encroach on the Great Qin dynasty's territory. Without the support of Nine Swords Mountain, Qin Qian alone would not be able to monitor such a large territory. Over on the Nine Swords Mountain's peak, a beautiful woman was staring at Ding Yu with hatred. It was all his fault for making Brother Zhangkong lose his composure and damaging his reputation. What a hateful fellow! Similarly, over on the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain's peak, the purple-clothed woman beside the red-bearded old man had an anxious expression on her face. Grandfather, can Brother Zhangkong snatch victory from the jaws of defeat? The red-bearded old man's expression was solemn. Although he really wanted to comfort his granddaughter, no matter how he looked at it, Ying Zhangkong had no chance of winning. In fact, it was likely that his attack would not even threaten Ding Yu. The latter was too calm. He still held the treasured sword in his arms, looking infinitely arrogant and disdainful. Without strength, only a fool would be so arrogant to face Ying Zhangkong's One Sword technique like that. Since he was clearly not a fool, it meant that he had absolute confidence. Before Ding Yu appeared, he had believed his grandson-in-law to be the #1 expert of the younger generation in the southern region. After Ding Yu appeared, Ying Zhangkong's fame seemed to dim. Ying Zhangkong had gathered his power to its peak state. His sword intent was fully condensed, causing his entire body to emit a sharp sword intent. Cracks appeared on the soil and rocks around him as the sword intent eroded the ground under his feet. Ding Yu, how dare you belittle me? You will pay the price for your arrogance. Ying Zhangkong raised his sword and pointed. Surging sword intent and aura instantly gathered on the tip of his sword. His sword seemed to be capable of splitting the world apart. The half-step Emperor Realm experts present all had solemn expressions. The One Sword technique of Nine Swords Mountain was too powerful. Not to mention that Ying Zhangkong had gathered his power for so long and condensed his sword intent into the sword, allowing it to reach the pinnacle of its strength. Regardless of whether it was Lu Pingfeng or the Evil King, both knew that it would not be easy to receive this sword strike. They might even be slightly injured. Ying Zhangkong was at the 9th level of the Truth Realm, yet his One Sword technique was already this powerful. How powerful would the Nine Swords Mountain's Elder, who was at the Half-Emperor Realm, be? Everyone stared at Ding Yu. They wanted to see how he would receive this sword strike. The purple-clothed woman clenched her fists and stared at Ding Yu. She kept shouting in her heart, "Stab him to death! Stab him to death! Brother Zhangkong is the most powerful." Ding Yu's childhood sweetheart was the same. She prayed that Ding Yu would be stabbed to death. Han Yingmeng's eyes widened. At this moment, her feelings were a little complicated. She hoped that Ding Yu would be stabbed to death, but she also did not want Ying Zhangkong to win. At the moment, no one could take their eyes off that unparalleled sword strike that seemed to split the world. Clang! The sound of the sword swinging down resounded through the world. Ding Yu made his move. Endless killing intent seemingly filled the world. Among the surrounding warriors, those below the 6th level of the Truth Realm were all shocked. They formed a spiritual power shield to protect their bodies. It started to rain. Sword rain. Small swords that were like raindrops fell down. The faces of all the experienced warriors changed at this moment. Sword intent manifestation. This was the rumored sword intent manifestation. What kind of sword Dao realm was this? It was rumored that every sword cultivator who had achieved sword intent manifestation was an invincible existence in the same realm. Throughout the history of the southern region, only records existed of an expert who had achieved sword intent manifestation. That was the founding ancestor of Nine Swords Mountain, a peerless expert who shook the entire northern zone. After countless years, there was now someone else from the southern region who had comprehended the realm of sword intent manifestation. While he had also been a disciple of Nine Swords Mountain, he had been expelled. Ding Yu had already sheathed his sword. He still held his longsword in his arms, while Ying Zhengkong knelt on one knee. The latter's longsword was on the ground, propping up his body to prevent him from falling down. He had lost again. He had lost so decisively too. Blood gushed out from his shoulder. The spot where he was injured was the exact spot where Ding Yu had stabbed him during their first bout. It was not even a centimeter off. The surroundings were completely silent. The experts were shocked by Ding Yu's sword intent manifestation. Others were shocked by how Ying Zhengkong, who had used the one-sword technique of Nine Swords Mountain, was still defeated so easily. It was as if Ying Zhengkong had fallen before Ding Yu had even used his strength. Their strengths were on completely different levels. The facial expression of the Nine Swords Mountain elder was unprecedentedly solemn. It was the first time since Nine Swords Mountain was founded that they had been defeated so easily. Moreover, they had been defeated by their very own expelled disciple. A top-notch Heaven's Blessed had been defeated by an expelled disciple. It was as if they had been ruthlessly slapped on the face. He really wanted to make a move and get rid of this great calamity, Ding Yu. However, he was not confident. The young man had achieved sword intent manifestation. From the beginning to the end, Ding Yu seemed composed and relaxed. He had defeated Ying Zhengkong with one strike. No one knew just how strong he was. If Ding Yu continued to oppose Nine Swords Mountain, then they would be finished. At this moment, he was considering whether he could persuade Ding Yu to return to Nine Swords Mountain. However, given the latter's current sword Dao, would he still need the support of the Nine Swords Mountain? Moreover, what kind of figure was the master behind Ding Yu? Ding Yu looked at Ying Zhengkong, whose face was as pale as a sheet, and felt very comfortable. His pride had been trampled on, right? His heart was in turmoil, right? Did he feel ashamed to lose to him, an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain? Do you know why you lost? Ding Yu looked down at him from above. Ying Zhengkong's lips twitched, but he did not say anything. Because, I have already broken through to the second out of 3 stages of the way of the sword, yet you haven't even broken through the first stage. You were not worthy of being my opponent from the beginning. Ding Yu said proudly. Ying Zhengkong raised his head and asked, what are the 3 stages of the way of the sword? All the experts, especially those from Nine Swords Mountain, were all riled up. They wanted to know what the 3 stages of the way of the sword principle were. Why had they never heard of the 3 stages of the way of the sword? Ding Yu had only broken through to the second stage, yet his sword intent had already transformed. If he could break through to the 3rd stage, what realm would his sword Dao reach? Listen well, the first stage of the way of the sword is to forget about your sweetheart. Ding Yu said seriously. Ying Zhengkong, everyone, only by forgetting your sweetheart can you pass the first stage and tread upon the path of the supreme sword. Ding Yu said with a serious expression. Bullshit. The purple-clothed woman was furious. The red-bearded old man was also so angry that his beard trembled. He glared furiously at Ding Yu. If Ying Zhengkong forgot his sweetheart, would that not mean that he would dump his granddaughter? That would be even worse. Chapter 114, Heaven Spying Mirror. Foolish. Ding Yu snorted coldly. He did not pay any attention to the purple-clothed woman's rage, nor the red-bearded old man's murderous gaze. He lowered his head to look at Ying Zhengkong and said, this is the gap between you and me. If you want to catch up with my pace, you should first start by breaking through to the first stage. Ying Zhengkong was furious. He did not believe Ding Yu's words at all. He felt that Ding Yu was teasing him. What? Forget about his sweetheart? That was simply ridiculous. Ding Yu, if you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't even think about disturbing my sword heart. Ding Yu sneered and said, kill you? Are you even worthy of dying by my blade? Sword intent surged forth from his body into the sky. In that instant, Ding Yu looked like a peerless divine sword that stood between heaven and earth. The edge of the sword was sharp and invincible. Everyone's expression changed in shock. What terrifying sword intent, what realm had this young man's sword Dao reached? It even made people suspect that he had the strength to go against the empires and slaughter them. I, Ding Yu, am someone who wants to slaughter gods. You are merely a small stepping stone. You are not worthy of my attention. Ding Yu's arrogant voice resounded throughout the surroundings. Everyone fell silent. Ying Jiangkong slumped to the ground and lost all his strength. He no longer had any desire to fight for supremacy. From today onwards, Ding Yu had become a huge mountain that he would never be able to climb in his heart. Chu Zan sat in the courtyard and fiddled with the myriad heavenly mirror. He did not know how Ding Yu was doing. It was a pity that he was unable to see what was going on at the Baisheng mountain ruin. Did Ding Yu kill everyone? Did he force Nine Swords Mountain to suffer a humiliating defeat? Why had he not triggered the system's reward yet? If only there was a treasure that allowed him to watch these events in real time. It was a pity that the myriad heavenly mirrors marks had already been used up. Otherwise, if he had placed one on Ding Yu's body, he would be able to watch. Although it had a limited range of view, it was still a live broadcast. As Chu Zan was sighing, the system's notification suddenly rang out in his head. You did not leave seclusion, yet your disciple Ding Yu crushed a top-notch heavens blessed in front of the Baisheng mountain ruin with a single sword strike, shocking everyone present. You have been rewarded with the heaven spying mirror. The system reward had really been triggered. Chu Zan was overjoyed. His guess was right. His disciples' outstanding achievements were a testament to his excellent teachings, and could also trigger the system's reward. He immediately examined the reward. The heaven spying mirror can spy on all things in the world, track all things, ignoring space and distance. The heaven spying mirror was a very powerful treasure. Unlike the myriad heavenly mirror, the heaven spying mirror only allowed him to spy on and track others, it could not transmit items. It could also spy on multiple places and targets at the same time, like watching multiple live broadcasts. There were two main ways to use the heavenly mirror. The first was for him to take the initiative to spy on someone or some place. The prerequisite was that he had to know the direction and approximate distance of the target. Moreover, the further away the target was, the greater the consumption of his spiritual power. Spying on multiple targets at the same time would undoubtedly consume a huge amount of spiritual power. The second way was to leave a mark on an object or creature, or to capture a wisp of its aura and use it as a mark to trace the target and spy on it. This method of spying completely ignored space and distance, and also consumed less energy. It would not consume more energy even if the target was further away. Its limitation was that he had to leave a mark on the object or creature, or capture a strand of its aura. Both methods had their pros and cons. Even so, the heaven spying mirror was still an extremely powerful treasure. Chu Zan took out the heaven spying mirror. He began to fiddle around with it, trying to find out if he could observe what was going on at Baisheng Mountain. Which direction is Baisheng Mountain in? How far away is it? There was no mark there, nor did he have a strand of Ding Yu's aura handy. As such, Chu Zan could only use the first method to track down Baisheng Mountain. He picked up the communication talisman and contacted Bao Hongyan, asking her about the direction and approximate distance of Baisheng Mountain from his courtyard. Bao Hongyan was the person that Chu Zan focused on nurturing. In the future, she would be in charge of the Black Moon Tower in the southern region. The talent and aptitude level of Lao Guitai was too useless. He was not worth nurturing at all. Chu Zan would not spend resources to improve his talent. The reason why Lao Guitai was sent to the southern region was probably because he was useless. Bao Hongyan quickly provided Chu Zan with the general direction and distance of Baisheng Mountain. She was extremely efficient. This was also one of the reasons why Chu Zan valued her over the other possible candidates. Bao Hongyan's cultivation had already reached the 7th level of the Truth Realm. Her strength was growing rapidly. At this moment, she was wholeheartedly working for Chu Zan. She no longer had any sense of belonging to Black Moon Tower. After all, Chu Zan was the reason why her cultivation could progress at such a rapid speed. After obtaining the general direction and distance of Baisheng Mountain, Chu Zan injected his spiritual power into the heaven spying mirror and directed it toward Baisheng Mountain's ruin. After some time, an image appeared. At first glance, Chu Zan thought he was looking at a mirage. After taking a closer look, he realized that this was what Baisheng Mountain's ruin looked like as it gradually emerged from the spatial crack. Since the ruin had not completely re-emerged, it looked just like a mirage. Adjusting the direction of the image, a mountain in front of the Baisheng mountain ruin appeared in the image. Then, he spotted Ding Yu, who had occupied that mountain. A young man was lying on the ground not far away from Ding Yu. That was probably Ding Yu's enemy, the top-notch genius of Nine Swords Mountain. He had already reached the 9th level of the Truth Realm at the age of 50. He was indeed talented and had to be very strong. Unfortunately, he could not compare to Ding Yu. He was destined to become Ding Yu's stepping stone. Chu Zan then heard Ding Yu's words. His statement was very arrogant. He was talking about killing gods. Chu Zan's mouth twitched. The southern region probably did not have any hidden deity realm experts, right? If there were any, and if they heard those words, what if that expert appeared to kill Ding Yu? It might even implicate him. However, thinking of the fact that Ding Yu was the son of fate of the southern region, Chu Zan felt that he should not have such bad luck. Moreover, the deity realm was something that only existed in legends. How could one be hidden in a small corner of the continent like the southern region? Ding Yu looked over toward Nine Swords Mountain's peak and said proudly, throughout Nine Swords Mountain's history, the only person who can be considered an expert is the founder of Nine Swords Mountain. The rest are not worthy of my attention. FCK, he's too FC King arrogant. All of the experts present were speechless. They looked at the Nine Swords Mountain elder and started to gloat. Such an arrogant disciple, it's a pity if he's not a heretic cultivator. The evil king sighed. Go to hell. Everyone was speechless. Which heretic cultivator was as arrogant as Ding Yu? Of all the geniuses of the evil imperial court, were there any who dared to say that only the founder of Nine Swords Mountain was worthy of their attention? The Nine Swords Mountain elder stared at Ding Yu coldly with a gloomy face. Arrogant B*****. Old man, come over here and fight me if you don't like my words. If I can't defeat you with 3 strikes, I, Ding Yu, will call you my father. Ding Yu was not afraid at all. So what if the other party was a half-step Emperor realm expert? He was not afraid. He had cultivated the firmament sword body, and the heaven-reaching sword technique was extremely powerful. It could even kill a half-step Emperor realm expert. The so-called half-step Emperor realm was also, in the end, still part of the Truth Realm. As long as the other party had not truly reached the Emperor realm, he was not afraid at all. Everyone was speechless. Ding Yu was a bit of a B** and quite shameless. He did not have the demeanor of a peerless sword cultivator at all. The Nine Swords Mountain elder was so angry that his face turned green, but he did not make a move in the end. He was not confident at all. He might even be defeated. The opening of Baisheng Mountain's ruin was imminent. Nine Swords Mountain could not afford to lose out on the opportunity to enter it. Chapter 115. Old Kur, don't you even dare to think about messing with my sword heart. ? Coward. Ding Yu looked at the other party with disdain. The elder's face was gloomy, and he did not say anything in response. Nine Swords Mountain has really declined. They expelled a peerless genius and chased him out of the sect. Instead, they wholeheartedly nurtured a good-for-nothing piece of trash. How pathetic. Lu Pingfeng added insult to injury while also trying to curry favor with Ding Yu. Over on Nine Swords Mountain's side, a woman had come over and helped Ying Zhangkong up. She looked at Ding Yu with hatred. Ding Yu, you've gone too far. Get lost. Ding Yu cursed. How have I gone too far? I've already shown mercy by not breaking your man's 3rd leg. What are you looking at? I'm someone beyond your reach. ... The woman was extremely angry. She helped Ying Zhangkong up and returned to the Nine Swords Mountain's peak. The purple-robed woman quickly came over to Ying Zhangkong's side and took out some medicinal pills to treat his injuries. She encouraged him at the same time. Brother Zhangkong, don't be discouraged. It's just a temporary setback. He was just a little lucky and obtained some fortuitous encounters. As long as you obtain some opportunities in Baisheng Mountain's ruin, you will definitely surpass him. Seeing Ying Zhangkong surrounded by beauties, Ding Yu was not envious at all. On the contrary, he had a look of disdain on his face. Ying Zhangkong, you are hopeless. Women will only affect the speed at which you draw your sword. You will never be able to catch up to me. The women beside Ying Zhangkong all glared at him angrily. Ding Yu had gone too far. Han Yingmeng's beautiful eyes were suffused with a strange light. Her posture was graceful as flower petals floated around her. She was like a fairy that walked out of a garden. She was devastatingly beautiful. This scene charmed many of the cultivators present. She walked over step by step, as if she was dancing in the air. She arrived at the mountain peak where Ding Yu was at. "Brother Ding Yu." Her voice was soft and charming. "Scram, woman, stay away from me." Unexpectedly, Ding Yu did not hold back at all and directly shouted at her angrily. Han Yingmeng almost died from anger. Be starred. Be starred. She, Han Yingmeng, was always the center of attention wherever she went. Who had ever berated her like this? No one. However, Ding Yu had berated her repeatedly and had gone too far. "You, I wish you an early death." Han Yingmeng returned to her own mountain peak in a huff. The corners of Chu Zan's mouth twitched. Did he go too far in deceiving Ding Yu? If this continued, this fellow was destined to live alone. According to the normal plotline development of a son of fate, this holy maiden of the floating flower pavilion should have become one of his lovers or admirers, right? Yet, she had been driven mad by Ding Yu. Good. I admire geniuses like Brother Ding Yu. He doesn't bow down to women. He can just grab them and have fun when he wants to. It's a waste of time to talk about love. The evil king praised him greatly. The experts of the floating flower pavilion and the other female cultivators all glared at the evil king angrily. They wanted to find an opportunity to kill him. The experts of the evil imperial court all had dark expressions. Their evil king really had a problem with his brain. FCK. He directly offended all of the female experts present. He was not like this in the past. He was very shrewd and cunning. Why had he become a retard now? The future of the evil imperial court hung in the balance. Brother Ding Yu, my evil imperial court needs law enforcers like you. Why don't you come to my evil imperial court to enforce the law and uphold justice? The evil king tried to recruit Ding Yu. The evil cultivators of the evil imperial court felt their hearts run cold. Crazy. The evil king was really crazy. He was actually trying to recruit Ding Yu to uphold justice in the evil imperial court. FCK. When did justice ever become a thing in our evil imperial court? They were an empire of heretic cultivators. Justice was not supposed to even be part of our vocabulary. The corners of the mouths of the other experts twitched. The evil king might really have a problem with his brain. Otherwise, how could he, a heretic cultivator, invite Ding Yu to uphold justice? FCK. Was he not afraid of Ding Yu killing all of the experts of the evil imperial court? Lu Pingfeng had thought so at the beginning, but, suddenly, he realized that something was wrong. The evil king was indeed cunning. He had actually used the banner of justice to rope Ding Yu into becoming an expert of the evil imperial court. Ding Yu was probably more valuable than all 10 evil commanders put together. Thinking this, Lu Pingfeng could not sit still. He immediately said, "Brother Ding Yu, I am the Prime Minister of the Great Qian Dynasty. Why don't you come over to the Great Qian Dynasty instead?" Lu Pingfeng then immediately offered a condition that showed how much he valued Ding Yu and how much the Great Qian Dynasty respected Ding Yu. "Brother Ding Yu, the little princess of the Great Qian Dynasty is extremely beautiful and talented. In terms of looks, she is even more beautiful than Holy Maiden Han Yingmeng. As long as Brother Ding Yu joins the Great Qian Dynasty, the king is willing to wed the little princess to you. Also, I have a little daughter who is also extremely beautiful. Her dancing skills are even better than Holy Maiden Han Yingmeng's, and she is willing to do anything for Brother Ding Yu. In addition, your status will be no lower than mine. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have 2 beauties who are even better than Saintess Han Yingmeng? Also, if you have any requests, feel free to state them. Be it spirit stones, pills, treasures, or even emperor-level weapons. Brother Ding Yu, as long as you join the Great Qian Dynasty, you can ask for anything." Lu Pingfeng was very confident that no one could reject such a generous offer. He already offered beauties and status. How many people could reject such an offer? The experts present were all shocked by Lu Pingfeng's offer. Especially the part where he wanted to marry his daughter to Ding Yu and said that the latter's status would be no lower than his. This implied that, as long as Ding Yu agreed to join the Great Qian Dynasty, his status would be equal or greater than the Prime Minister's. The expressions of those from Nine Swords Mountain were extremely ugly. Qin Changfeng was extremely anxious. Once Ding Yu joined the Great Qian Dynasty, he would be able to restrain a large portion of the experts from Nine Swords Mountain. The Great Qin Dynasty would then face the gradual encroachment of the Great Qian Dynasty into their territory. The Great Qin Dynasty relied on Nine Swords Mountain to restrain the experts from the Great Qian Dynasty. No matter how strong Qin Qian was, she could not destroy the Great Qian Dynasty. How could she defend such a large territory by herself? He wanted to rope Ding Yu into the Great Qin dynasty, but they themselves were allies with Nine Swords Mountain, and Ding Yu was an expelled disciple of Nine Swords Mountain. No matter what, he would not choose the Great Qin dynasty. The red-bearded elder did not say anything. His granddaughter was Ying Jiangkong's fiancée, so how could he rope in Ding Yu? Han Yingmeng was furious and glared at Lu Pingfeng. "Beastard, you dared to say that your daughter can dance better than me, and the little princess of the Great Qian dynasty is prettier than me." Everyone was taking turns to step on her dignity today. Did they all think that she had a good temper? Ding Yu looked at Lu Pingfeng, and his face gradually darkened. Marry the princess to him. Marry his daughter to him. What a sinister person. He actually intended to use beauty to seduce him and mess up his sword heart, turning him into a person who chased after beauties. If he married his daughter and the little princess, should he stand up for them whenever something happened? How could he cultivate the sword Dao if they kept pestering him all day? They would even give birth to children, which would further restrain him. People might even use them to blackmail him. How could he break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword when he was tied down by such bonds in his heart? He remembered his master's teachings clearly. If he had no woman in his heart, he could draw his sword and slay gods. The more Ding Yu thought about it, the more he felt that Lu Pingfeng was being sinister and cunning. He claimed that he wanted to rope him in, but, in fact, this man wanted to use beauties to mess with his sword heart. He wanted to destroy his ambition of reaching the peak of sword Dao. He immediately snorted and said angrily, "Old cur, don't even think of messing with my sword heart. I, Ding Yu, only have the Dao of sword in my heart. If you want to use beauties to mess with my sword heart, dream on. Old cur, give up. Don't ever think of messing with my sword heart." Ding Yu said angrily. Lu Pingfeng was momentarily stunned, after which he was consumed by rage. Chapter 116, Chu Yuan's Return. Lu Pingfeng was so angry that his expression contorted. He had offered to marry the little princess and his own daughter to Ding Yu. In the end, not only did the other party not appreciate his kindness, he even felt that he was harming him. Was he AFC King lunatic? He must have cultivated the way of the sword to the point that his brain had become abnormal. The others also had strange expressions on their faces. They had thought that Ding Yu would definitely join the Great Qian dynasty. After all, Lu Pingfeng's offer was too generous. Who would have thought that not only did the Great Qian dynasty fail to pull him in, they even angered Ding Yu. Han Yingmeng felt a little better and looked at Lu Pingfeng gloatingly. HMPH, who asked him to disparage her like that? She looked at Ding Yu, and could not help but grit her teeth. Chu Zan rubbed his head and fell into a state of deep thought. Did his teachings cause Ding Yu to go astray? This fellow was seemingly destined for eternal loneliness. No, when he returned, Chu Zan would try to deceive him again. He could not allow his disciple to live as a celibate. Ding Yu had trampled on Nine Swords Mountain and rubbed their faces into the dirt. Thanks to that, none of the other forces had any intention of finding trouble with Ding Yu. No one wanted to become enemies with such a prodigy with boundless potential. Moreover, they might not even be able to defeat him. After the commotion, things finally quieted down. Everyone was waiting for the opening of the Baisheng mountain ruin. Ding Yu occupied a mountain peak by himself and was in the limelight. The Baisheng mountain had not been opened yet, so the major factions began to discuss the quota for entry. Not everyone had the qualifications to enter. This was especially so for itinerant cultivators, who were almost all excluded unless they were strong enough. It was naturally also difficult for small factions to obtain a spot. Ding Yu did not participate in these discussions. Regardless of whether he was included or not, he could definitely enter. No one could exclude him, or even stop him. Be it Nine Swords Mountain, the Floating Flower Pavilion, or the Great Qian Dynasty, which were the 3 factions that had a direct conflict with Ding Yu, or any of the other factions, they all knew that Ding Yu alone was a large faction. There was no way to exclude him. Most of the unaffiliated cultivators were excluded, so there were some unaffiliated cultivators who wanted to obtain a spot by joining him. In addition, since Ding Yu did not seem to like women, only men went. These itinerant cultivators encouraged Ding Yu to fight for a place and flattered him, saying that he could form his own large force since he had occupied a mountain. Why did they think that he could not get a spot? It was obvious that they looked down on him. Shut up. Ding Yu shouted angrily, if you want a spot, go fight for it yourself. Get lost. If you bother me again, I'll kill you. Seeing Ding Yu get angry, the itinerant cultivators could only leave in embarrassment. Ding Yu snorted coldly. He was not stupid. There was no way he would let them use him for their own benefit. Chu Zan did not continue paying attention to what was going on and deactivated the heaven spying mirror. The real highlight would be when the Baisheng Mountain's ruin was fully opened. He had a feeling that Ding Yu had offended many experts. He would definitely be surrounded and killed if they found the right opportunity to do so. This was especially true for Nine Swords Mountain, who would never allow such a great calamity to continue brewing. Although Ding Yu wanted to slap Nine Swords Mountain on the face and damage their reputation as revenge for expelling him, he did not want to destroy them or kill them. However, the experts of Nine Swords Mountain would not think that way. They were worried that Ding Yu would kill them all when he became stronger. Chu Zan told Bao Hongyan to keep an eye on Nine Swords Mountain's movements. After giving her those instructions, he directed his attention elsewhere. It would still take some time before the ruin fully opened. There was no rush. Chu Zan activated the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Ren Chang. Ren Chang was only half a step away from breaking through to the divine realm. The day he broke through to the divine realm would be the day he escaped his predicament. Chu Zan was looking forward to the day Ren Chang broke through to the divine realm and the cultivation boost reward he would receive. He was getting closer and closer to the divine realm. He also gave Du Yuan some pointers and as well as a bottle of Supreme Realm cultivation pills. Then, he continued to make preparations for Su Shan'er breakthrough to the Emperor Realm. Su Shan'er breakthrough to the Emperor Realm would be an extremely important milestone for her. He would probably be rewarded with 100 years worth of cultivation, right? Turning his attention to the world-cleansing glazed pagoda again, he noticed that Mo Tuo had almost been converted. It was lacking just that tiny bit. Once Mo Tuo was converted, he would have a Buddhist disciple with a heaven realm cultivation under his command. Mo Tuo's conversion was also a kind of opportunity for the demon. At the very least, his soul would recover its heaven realm cultivation, and he could even condense a physical body. Converting Mo Tuo would likely also trigger the system's reward. Chu Zan was full of anticipation. Time flowed like water, and half a month passed in the blink of an eye. The Baisheng Mountain ruin had not opened yet. It was much slower than expected. The quotas of the major forces had already been determined. During this time, a conflict had broken out. A half-step Emperor Realm itinerant cultivator had led a dozen 9th-level Truth Realm experts and threatened the major forces to give up some of the entry quotas. A short battle between half-step Emperor Realm cultivators then broke out. The half-step Emperor Realm itinerant cultivator was injured, but they also received a few spots. Su Shan'er had already left the pocket dimension and was in seclusion in the universe space, preparing to break through to the Emperor Realm. She was comprehending the laws of the Great Tao. Wang Luo's cultivation had already risen to the 7th level of the Truth Realm. It could be said that he had made rapid progress. On this day, Chu Tianming's roar was heard from the ancestral residence. It had been a long time since he had heard this familiar roar. Chu Zan looked up and noticed that Chu Yuan had returned. However, he looked haggard and extremely dejected. Beside him was a little boy. The corners of his mouth twitched. He had left for a few years and returned with a son. For some reason, this scene seemed strangely familiar. Was Chu Yuan's wife from a large family clan? Had their marriage been met with opposition? Was she now captured and held captive in her clan? Was that why Chu Yuan was in such a dire state? Thinking back to the time when Chu Yuan had been hiding in some ruin, it was very likely that this was the cause behind such a melodramatic situation. Chu Tianming was roaring, and the other elders of the Chu family were all glaring angrily at Chu Yuan. His status in the Chu family was extremely awkward. Fortunately, Chu Yun had accompanied Chu Yuan back. Otherwise, he would have been expelled before they even reached the ancestral residence. Chu Yun's status in the Chu family was extraordinary after all. Thus, Chu Tianming was only roaring angrily and did not expel him. The other elders of the Chu family did not do anything too extreme either. Chu Yuan did not seem to display any reaction to the attitudes of Chu Tianming and the other members of the Chu family. Instead, he seemed extremely dejected. His cultivation had already reached the 1st level of the Unity Realm. As expected of the most talented person in the current generation of the Chu family. Not long after, Chu Yuan appeared at the entrance of the small courtyard. 13th brother, can I ask you for something? Chu Yuan's expression was haggard, as if he had lost his soul. Chu Zan looked at the little boy beside him. He looked to be about 5 or 6 years old, and he had a tiger-like appearance. He looked dull and seemed a little stupid. One look was all it took to tell that he was not some clever child. His level of talent seemed to be very average. The little boy held a wooden saber in his hand and fiddled with it. Half of his attention was on that wooden saber. Chuzan sighed in his heart. He knew what Chu Yuan wanted from him. He thought of this person, his father's direct disciple, who often hated him for not living up to his father's legacy. That same person was now standing in front of him with a haggard expression. He was no longer as high-spirited as before. The last time he came back, he had deliberately left half of an emperor-level scripture for him, in order to increase his influence in the family. He could be considered to have put in a lot of effort to ensure Chuzan's well-being. Chapter 117, Innately Talent in the Extreme Tao. Tell me, what do you want me to do? Chuzan sighed. A person who used to be so high-spirited was now looking so down and out because of the word, love. His father had been the same. As expected of his father's direct disciple. Not only had he learned how to break off his marriage engagement, but he was now also depressed because of love. Chu Yuan patted the little boy's head and said, "This is my son, Chu Pingfan. I want you to help me bring him up to live an ordinary life. Pingfan, address him as 13th uncle." Chu Pingfan raised his head and looked at Chuzan. 13th uncle. Yes, good boy. Chuzan looked at Chu Pingfan thoughtfully. He had a tiger-like aura, but looked dull and clumsy. It was obvious that he was not talented. Perhaps that was why he was called ordinary. T.N. Pingfan means ordinary in Mandarin. Chu Yuan's wife had been taken away by someone from her family, but not Chu Pingfan. It was probably because of his lack of talent. If he was talented, no large family would abandon him. After handing Chu Pingfan over to Chuzan, Chu Yuan let out a sigh of relief and began to briefly tell his story. It was just as Chuzan predicted. Chu Yuan's wife was the daughter of a large family clan. They fell in love with each other and gave birth to Chu Pingfan. In the end, his wife's family sent an expert to look for her and forcefully took her away. The reason why that expert did not kill Chu Yuan was because his wife had pleaded for mercy on his behalf bitterly. "I want to head to the eastern region. I will make them understand that I, Chu Yuan, am not weaker than others in my lifetime." Chu Yuan said firmly, "Take care, third brother. I'll take care of him." Chuzan sighed and patted Chu Yuan's shoulder. He transmitted some of his power into Chu Yuan's body, giving him a life-saving trump card. As long as he did not encounter a Heaven Realm expert, this power was enough to keep him safe. Chu Pingfan stopped playing with the saber and looked at Chu Yuan in a daze. "Father, are you leaving Fenur?" Chu Yuan rubbed his head. "Father is going to look for mother. Fenur, be good and listen to 13th uncle, got it?" "Okay." Chu Pingfan nodded his head. Chu Yuan left. He wanted to leave the southern region and head to the eastern region. Under normal circumstances, the only way to leave the southern region was to seek out the Black Moon Tower and leave through their secret channel. However, Chu Yuan had another way. His wife had once told him that there was a way to secretly leave the southern region. It was just more dangerous. Chu Pingfan stared blankly at the entrance of the small courtyard. He did not speak for a long time, simply clutching the wooden saber in his hand. Chu Yun came over. "Pingfan, do you miss your aunt?" Chu Yuan picked up Chu Pingfan and asked dotingly. "Yes." Chu Pingfan nodded his little head. 13th brother, third brother Chu Yuan, he. Chu Yun felt saddened by what had happened to Chu Yuan. Everyone has their own path. Perhaps this is his path. Chuzan sighed. Chu Yun put down Chu Pingfan, rubbed his little head, and sent a voice transmission to Chuzan. 13th brother, Pingfan's talent is a little. Chuzan smiled and did not answer. "I will find the materials to refine pills that can improve your talent." Chu Yun looked at Chu Pingfan lovingly. "Talent is not the be-all end-all." Chuzan waved his hand and asked Chu Pingfan to come over. Looking at the silly-looking little boy, Chuzan lowered his head and asked, "Pingfan, do you like knives very much?" "Yes, I do." Chu Pingfan nodded. "Why do you like them?" "Because knives are very domineering. I like domineering things." "You don't like swords." "I don't like them." Chuzan rubbed his head and did not continue asking. Chu Yun told him about her experiences when she went out to train, especially about the little evil king, the simp who was following her around. She had a look of disdain on her face. 13th brother, that guy is very evil, so I swindled him out of all his things and refined a lot of pills. Chu Yun was very pleased with herself as she took out several bottles of pills. 13th brother, these pills are for you. Chuzan stuffed the pills back into her mouth and said, "I don't need any pills." He mourned silently for the little evil king in his heart. What was the point of simping? In the end, he had nothing left. Chu Yun had found out about the little evil king's identity from the Black Moon Tower, as well as his personality and evil tendencies. That was why she was so angry and tried her best to bankrupt the little evil king. It could be considered as venting her anger. After that, Chu Yun returned to the ancestral residence. Chu Zan called Su Shaner and Wang Luo out and introduced Chu Pingfan to the two of them. This was his nephew. Chu Pingfan was also handed over to the two of them to take care of. Su Shaner's main task in the future would be to take care of Chu Pingfan. A few days passed, and Bai Sheng Mountain's ruin became clearer. At this rate, it would definitely open within half a month. Chu Pingfan had already adapted to life in the small courtyard. Occasionally, he would look at the courtyard entrance in a daze. Most of the time, he would hold the wooden saber and wave it. Chu Zan did not allow him to enter the pocket dimension. Chu Pingfan was not an adult. If he entered the pocket dimension, Chu Zan would have to adjust the time flow difference in the pocket dimension to match reality. The time flow difference of the pocket dimension would not increase one's age because of its unique traits. If Chu Pingfan entered, even if he stayed inside for decades, he would still remain a child. At the moment, Wang Luo was busy rapidly improving his cultivation, so Chu Zan did not want to adjust the time difference in the pocket dimension to match reality. As such, Chu Pingfan either hung out in the courtyard or in the universe space. For this reason, Chu Zan called out the heavenly spirit cat, the sky-shaking golden rock, and the spirit-devouring flower to play with Chu Pingfan. Pingfan, come here. Chu Zan waved at Chu Pingfan, who was waving his wooden saber with a serious expression and a sullen face. 13th uncle. Chu Pingfan ran over. Chu Zan rubbed his little head and said, Pingfan, can 13th uncle teach you how to use a saber? Yes please. Thank you, 13th uncle. Chu Pingfan's eyes lit up. Chu Zan flipped his hand and a wooden saber that was a little longer than Chu Pingfan's height appeared in his hand. The wooden saber looked ordinary, and not very beautiful at all. It was an ordinary saber made from a branch that Chu Zan had broken off from an ordinary tree in the pocket dimension. Only the master of the pocket dimension, Chu Zan, could break off a branch of a tree that could not be damaged and make it into a wooden saber. Here, this saber is for you. Chu Pingfan hugged the wooden saber with both hands happily. Chu Zan sighed in his heart when he saw him like this. Everyone thought that he was stupid and had no talent. However, he knew that Chu Pingfan's talent lay in the extreme Tao. Moreover, he was innately talented in this regard. One could only reach the peak of the extreme Tao by relying on extreme affection. This affection was not that of love, but rather an extreme affection toward the Tao. For example, Chu Pingfan had an extreme affection toward sabers. His name was Pingfan, so he would give him a saber made of ordinary wood. Chu Zan thought very highly of this tiger-like, seemingly stupid nephew, especially since he was innately talented in the extreme Tao. As long as it was someone he, Chu Zan, nurtured, there was no way that person would turn out as trash. Even if someone was trash from the get-go, Chu Zan could still nurture that person into a genius. Moreover, Chu Pingfan himself possessed talent in the extreme Tao. Although Chu Pingfan was young, he understood very well that his mother had been captured and that his father had gone to look for his mother. Everyone thought that he was stupid. He was unwilling to accept this. In fact, he had been holding back his anger. He wanted to prove that he was not stupid and fight for his parents. Chapter 118, Saber Nurturing Technique. The Heaven's Fate Saber scripture could finally be used. Chu Zan had obtained this extreme Tao technique a long time ago. Due to the harsh cultivation process, he had never found a suitable person to cultivate it. Even though Chu Zan had comprehended the Heaven's Fate Saber scripture, he had never cultivated it. Thus, he was unable to unleash the full power of this technique. He was not an extreme Tao saber cultivator. There was no specific grade when it came to extreme Tao techniques. Whether or not it was powerful depended entirely on the person who cultivated it. Chu Pingfan was innately talented when it came to the extreme Tao of the saber. Chu Zan knew that he would be very powerful if he managed to cultivate the Heaven's Fate Saber scripture. His potential would not be inferior to Ding Yu or Wang Luo. Looking at Chu Pingfan clutching the ordinary saber in his arms, Chu Zan liked this nephew of his more and more. He was only 6 years old. If he started cultivating now, under Chu Zan's guidance, it would not be a problem for him to break through to the Emperor realm by the age of 20. An Emperor realm expert at the age of 20 was likely unheard of since ancient times. It was absolutely unbelievable. Moreover, Chuzan was fully confident that Chu Pingfan would be able to break through to the Emperor realm even before the age of 20. The benchmark of a top-notch heavens blessed, which was that of the 100-year Emperor realm, was for others. For one to have talent in the extreme Tao itself was special. Chu Pingfan, who was innately talented in the extreme Tao, should not be compared to ordinary top-notch heavens blessed. Moreover, Chuzan believed that the way he taught his disciples was the best in the world. After all, he had the blessing of the Sagemaster's halo. An Emperor realm expert who was not even 20 years old would emerge under his guidance. The system's reward for that would definitely be absolutely generous. It was worth looking forward to. Pingfan, 13th uncle will teach you a saber scripture. Thank you, 13th uncle. Chu Pingfan looked at Chuzan excitedly. Chuzan raised his hand and pointed his finger toward Pingfan's forehead. He transmitted the Heaven's Fate saber scripture to Chu Pingfan. Chu Pingfan closed his eyes and tried to comprehend the saber scripture that had suddenly appeared in his mind. Half an hour later, he opened his eyes and looked at Chuzan. 13th uncle, I like this cultivation technique very much. I'll definitely work hard to cultivate it. Chuzan did not want him to only know how to cultivate at such a young age. Even though he was feeling internally stifled, and still wanted to fight for his parents, he should not be allowed to miss out on the fun of being a child just because of that. Pingfan, you should also pay attention to relaxation and recreation aside from cultivating. You shouldn't go to extremes just because of the burden in your heart. Chuzan's Sagemaster halo enveloped his body, and his voice seemed to break through the walls around Pingfan's heart, reaching the depths of his heart. He wanted to heal the wounds in Chu Pingfan's heart and restore the innocence that a kid his age should have. Chu Pingfan fell into a dazed state. When Chuzan finished speaking, Pingfan raised his head, his eyes were now clear. 13th uncle, I understand. I'll definitely cultivate well and have fun at the same time. Chuzan was very gratified. Chu Pingfan still looked dull, and he still gave one the feeling that he was somewhat dumb. However, he no longer exuded that frustrated, stifling feeling that he had before. All right, from today onward, you will learn how to nurture your saber. Chuzan rubbed Pingfan's head. Nurturing one's saber was the first stage of cultivating the Heaven's Fate saber scripture, and also the first step to the extreme Tao. The method to cultivate the Heaven's Fate saber scripture was not an ordinary one. When nurtured properly, a saber was like a human. It had a body, a heart, and a soul. Before it was nurtured, it was like any ordinary person. Once it was successfully nurtured, its strength would skyrocket, completely ignoring the shackles of its realm. In an instant, it would advance several realms and reach an extremely high realm. This was the uniqueness and power of the Heaven's Fate saber scripture. However, it was not so easy to nurture a saber. Only a genius of the extreme Tao could afford to nurture a saber. The higher the realm of a saber was nurtured to, the greater the increase in its realm would be on the day of its success. From that day onward, Chu Pingfan held the ordinary saber and started to nurture the saber according to the saber nurturing technique of the Heaven's Fate saber scripture. As Chu Pingfan started to nurture the saber, the wooden saber made of ordinary wood gradually changed, as if it was becoming a part of Chu Pingfan. Although that was the case, it still looked like an ordinary wooden saber. Chuzan was looking forward to the day when Chu Pingfan would nurture his saber to a higher level. Void realm, Unity realm, or perhaps even the Truth realm. Of course, it was impossible for him to reach the Emperor realm with that. On the path of cultivation, the Emperor realm was like a giant chasm. It could not be achieved by simply nurturing a saber. Chuzan was sure that, among all of the extreme Tao experts, no one had more resources than Chu Pingfan did now. He was using the ordinary wood blade as his starting point to nurture his saber, so his starting point was much higher than others. The ordinary wood's indestructible nature matched up perfectly with the cultivation of the extreme Tao in the Heaven's Fate saber scripture. Chu Pingfan used the Heaven's Fate saber scripture to nurture his saber, nurture his body, nurture his mind, and nurture his soul. As he nurtured his saber, physical body, mental state, and mental will, he would also improve in all of those aspects. In order to nurture Chu Pingfan's physical body as much as possible, and increase the efficiency and limit of his saber cultivation, Chuzan took out many treasures. Every day, he would give Chu Pingfan a medicinal bath. He even instructed Wang Luo to specially refine Emperor-level medicinal baths to temper Chu Pingfan's body. He was using Emperor-level medicinal baths to temper his body. Even the legitimate descendants of the human king's families did not receive such treatment. Not everyone had access to Emperor-level medicinal bath formulas. The effects of these medicinal baths were mild, and even children could soak in it. Moreover, it was not that easy to find the natural treasures required to refine these medicinal baths. Chuzan possessed countless resources in his pocket dimension, which allowed him to be so extravagant. Su Shaner and Wang Luo were in charge of Chu Pingfan's daily life and cultivation. Chu Yun would also come over every once in a while. She would deliver medicinal pills to Chu Pingfan as well. Gradually, Chu Yun also discovered something different about Chu Pingfan. However, she only thought that her medicinal pills had taken effect. Chu Pingfan quietly cultivated his saber. In the eyes of Su Shaner and Wang Luo, he was still a child. The only difference was that he bathed in emperor-level medicinal baths to temper his body, making his body very strong. Now, he truly looked like a tiger. Other than that, there was nothing special about him. His talent still seemed ordinary. The only thing he liked was the wooden saber, which was almost always with him. The two of them could not figure out how Chuzan was going to train Chu Pingfan. Was Chuzan not going to increase his talent? Thinking along these lines, Wang Luo found some heavenly and earthly treasures and refined a pill that could increase one's talent. This was the highest grade pill he had refined so far. He failed 3 times in a row before he succeeded. It had taken Wang Luo a lot of effort to refine this pill. When he saw Chu Pingfan, he thought of himself. Back then, he had received similar treatment in the Wang family and had not been well liked. Pingfan, come over here. As he exited the pocket dimension, Wang Luo waved and called out to Chu Pingfan. Uncle Wang. Chu Pingfan carried the wooden saber and ran to him. Here, eat this pill. Although he saw the pill in Wang Luo's hand, Chu Pingfan did not take it immediately. Instead, he looked toward Chuzan. Chuzan glanced at it and said, if you want to eat it, just eat it. Just treat it like a piece of candy. Chu Pingfan was a genius of the extreme Tao. Pills like these that could improve his talent were useless. Chu Pingfan took the pills happily and put them into his mouth to chew. He ate quite a number of pills, as they tasted pretty good. He ate them as snacks. Whether it was Chu Yun or Wang Luo, both refined pills that were relatively mild for him, and the medicinal efficacy of those pills would slowly nourish him. Therefore, even though Chu Pingfan had not even reached the mortal realm, he could still eat these pills. The medicinal effects of the pills he ate were all used to nurture his saber. He remained ordinary, without any improvement. Chapter 119. The first Buddha in this world, Buddha Nanwu. Wang Luo stared at Chu Pingfan for a long time with a puzzled expression. Why had there not been any changes? There was no problem with the pills he refined. When he encountered a problem he did not understand, he naturally turned to his master for advice. Master, why didn't Pingfan's talent increase? Chuzan said lazily, his Tao is different from yours. It's different from the millions of cultivators in this world. How is it different? Chuzan said mysteriously, you'll find out in the future. Wang Luo did not probe further. Instead, he asked about his own cultivation. Su Shaner also tagged along. Chuzan activated the Sage Master halos and began to explain the mysteries of cultivation to the two of them. With the support of the Sage Master's halo, Su Shaner and Wang Luo managed to comprehend many things instantly. After that, Wang Luo returned to the pocket dimension to cultivate, while Su Shaner continued to comprehend the laws of the Great Tao and accumulate her foundation in preparation for breaking through to the Emperor realm. Chuzan took a look at the Baisheng mountain ruin once again. More than half of the ruin had now been revealed. Just a little more and the spatial crack it had fallen into would open up completely, allowing it to return to the southern region once more. The Baisheng mountain ruin will open in 3 to 4 days. Chuzan glanced at Ding Yu. He was still occupying the mountain alone arrogantly. He chose not to interact with any of the forces or experts present. The Nine Swords Mountain Elder had secretly communicated with Lu Pingfeng and the red-bearded Elder of the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain a few times. He even dragged the itinerant half-step Emperor Realm Cultivator along. Unsurprisingly, they planned to surround and kill Ding Yu when the ancient ruin opened. The Great Qian dynasty and Nine Swords Mountain were supposed to be enemies but, because of Ding Yu, they had chosen to work together. Chuzan was not worried about Ding Yu's safety. How could the son of fate of the southern region die just because he was surrounded? Moreover, Ding Yu was so powerful that he could kill even a half-step Emperor Realm Cultivator. Half-step Emperor Realm Cultivators were not real Emperor Realm Cultivators, after all. The only thing that made them similar to actual Emperor Realm Cultivators was that they possessed pseudo-domains. A pseudo-domain could suppress other truth realm cultivators, but it would not be able to suppress Ding Yu. Whether it was his sword Dao or his firmament sword body, neither of them could be suppressed by a pseudo-domain. Moreover, Ding Yu was not without his own trump cards. If half-step Emperor realm experts surrounded Ding Yu, it was likely thought one or two of them would die. Suddenly, Chu Zan directed his focus toward the world-purifying glazed pagoda. He could hear the sound of chanting coming from inside the pagoda. Shutting down the heaven-spying mirror, Chu Zan looked at Mo Tuo. At this moment, Mo Tuo was undergoing a transformation. His entire body was shrouded in Buddhist light, and his head had become bald. His long eyebrows drooped, and he looked very solemn. It was obvious that he was now an accomplished monk. Had he already been fully converted? Chu Zan was overjoyed. He had converted a heaven realm demon, and it was very likely that this demon was the first Buddha in the world. This should be able to trigger the system's reward, right? The aura around Mo Tuo's body was also surging, and his soul continued to transform. Chu Zan condensed a soul seed seal and took the opportunity to implant it into Mo Tuo's soul. After he was converted, he would become his subordinate, a devout Buddhist disciple, and he would also become a Buddha. He would not have any bad thoughts toward Chu Zan, only respect and worship. Still, Chu Zan felt that it would be safer to plant a soul seal just in case. Sometimes, piety and worship could change. An example would be when there was a difference in ideals. At this moment, Mo Tuo had just been converted into a Buddha, so he naturally did not have any thoughts of resisting. The soul seal was implanted very smoothly into his divine soul. Mo Tuo's transformation continued. His strength was also increasing, and the strength of his divine soul was also increasing. The Buddhist light was flourishing all around him. He lowered his head and pressed his palms together. The sound of chanting continued to ring out. He was becoming more and more like an eminent monk. He began to resemble the image of the legendary Buddha. At a certain moment, the Buddhist light bloomed and the chanting stopped. Then, the Buddhist light withdrew itself into his body. Buddha is merciful. Mo Tuo stood up, put his palms together, and knelt down. Greetings, Buddha. Chu Zan's divine form condensed and, after he made a few changes, he too had a solemn expression and demeanor. Get up. With a wave of his hand, he moved Mo Tuo out of the world-cleansing glazed pagoda. You did not leave seclusion, yet converted the world's first Buddha. You have been rewarded with the 24-petal Tao Lotus, Buddha's golden body, demon-subduing staff, 7 treasures Kasaya, and 100 years' worth of cultivation. The system's reward had arrived. As expected, Mo Tuo being converted into this world's first Buddha resulted in the system's reward being exceptionally generous. The 24-petal Tao Lotus was a supreme treasure. As for the Buddha's golden body, it was a Buddhist cultivation technique, so it could be passed on to Mo Tuo. Chu Zan did not need the demon-subduing staff or the 7 treasures Kasaya since he was not a monk. Naturally, he had to give these to Mo Tuo. Mo Tuo would don the 7 treasures Kasaya and hold the demon-subduing staff in his hand. He would cultivate the Buddha's golden body technique and have a bald head. He would look solemn and kind. The once powerful demon had instantly turned into a Buddha. Chu Zan looked at Mo Tuo and said in a majestic voice, now that you are part of my Buddhist sect, I will give you the Buddha's golden body technique, demon-subduing staff, and the 7 treasures Kasaya. Thank you for the gift. Mo Tuo knelt on the ground with an excited expression. Chu Zan raised his hand and pointed, and the Buddha's golden body technique was transmitted into Mo Tuo's soul. The 7 treasures Kasaya and the demon-subduing staff were also bestowed upon him. Mo Tuo put on the Kasaya and held the staff in his hand. He was so excited that his long eyebrows trembled. Your original name was Mo Tuo. Since you have already converted, the mortal world's fate has nothing to do with you. Today, I will bestow upon you the name, Buddha Nanwu. Chu Zan changed Mo Tuo's name. Since he was in the southern region and was the world's first Buddha, then he should call himself the Nanwu. T.N. Buddha Nanwu translates to Buddha of the South. Thank you for giving me this name. Buddha Nanwu kneeled on the ground again. You should condense your golden body and diligently practice the Buddhist Dharma. Chu Zan waved his hand and sent Buddha Nanwu into the pocket dimension. Wang Luo was refining pills when he suddenly felt the light of Buddha blooming. He looked up and saw a bald man with long eyebrows. His bald head was so smooth that it even reflected light. The other party also wore strange clothes. One look was enough for him to tell that the other party's clothes were extraordinary. They were definitely a divine artifact, or perhaps even a grade above divine artifacts. Then, he looked at the staff in his hand. It was also a divine artifact or better. Gulp. Who was this person? Amitabha. Buddha Nanwu put his palms together and chanted a Buddhist chant. Then, he went off to find a mountain to cultivate and condense his golden body. He had not forgotten that he was once a demon expert, nor had he lost his memory. Instead, he had converted into a Buddha, so those memories were regarded as memories of his previous mortal self, before he had attained the Tao. He was no longer a demon, but a Buddha. In fact, he even thought about converting the demon race into Buddhas. Somehow, this thought was deeply rooted in his heart. Master, who is he? Wang Hao was very shocked. Who was that person? A heaven realm expert. Furthermore, the power in his body was very strange. It was powerful and vast, but it was also a power that he had never seen or heard of before. Buddha Nanwu, he's my disciple, Chu Zan said. To be honest, Buddha Nanwu, Ding Yu, and Wang Luo could be considered as fellow disciples. A fellow disciple? Yes and no. His Tao is different from yours. Chu Zan did not say much. After Buddha Nanwu condensed his golden body, he would ask him about the battle in the Asura ancient land when the demon race had invaded the southern region back then. After receiving the 100-year cultivation boost reward, Chu Zan's strength began to rise, and he broke through to the 8th level of the Supreme Realm. Chapter 120. Ancient Ruin opens, surrounded by half-step Emperor Realm experts. Question mark. Breaking through to the 8th level of the Supreme Realm meant that Chu Zan was one step closer to the Heaven Realm. The Supreme Realm and the Heaven Realm were separated by a natural chasm. It was even bigger than the gap between the Truth Realm and the Emperor Realm. Most importantly, breaking through to the Heaven Realm would bring about a tribulation. Only by passing through the tribulation could one break through to the Heaven Realm. Otherwise, one would either die from the tribulation or be severely injured. Those who were injured would have their foundations damaged and they would forever remain in the Supreme Realm. Generally speaking, it was almost impossible to break through to the Heaven Realm again, even if one was lucky enough to survive the heavenly tribulation after trying to break through the first time. The only hope for such people was to obtain a great fortuitous encounter and reach the peak of the Supreme Realm again. Despite this, they would still have to face the heavenly tribulation again. However, such second chances were extremely rare. Almost every Supreme Realm expert who failed but survived the heavenly tribulation would have their foundation severely damaged, and they would not be able to return to their peak again. They could only remain in the Supreme Realm for the rest of their lives. Chu Zan was not worried about the heavenly tribulation. He would simply stay in the courtyard and make a quiet breakthrough. Everything would be managed by the system, so there was no need to worry about the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, given his deep and sturdy cultivation foundation, he would easily be able to survive and successfully pass the heavenly tribulation. If even he could not survive and successfully pass the heavenly tribulation, then there was no Supreme Realm expert in this world who could do so. Buddha Nanwu was in the process of condensing his golden body. When he finished condensing his golden body and recovered his strength to its peak, he would have the chance to break through to the Divine Realm. Please reading on myboxnovel.com. He was no longer a demon, but a Buddha. In that sense, the road ahead was smooth. The door to the Divine Realm had already opened for him. Ren Cheng would break through to the Divine Realm, and Buddha Nanwu would also break through to the Divine Realm. Chu Zan would then have 2 Divine Realm experts under his command. The reward from the system for that achievement would not be poor. Moreover, Chu Zan felt that, as long as he worked hard, he might be able to break through to the Divine Realm before Ren Cheng and Buddha Nanwu. Wang Luo was already at the 9th level of the Truth Realm. He was starting to accumulate strength and consolidate his foundation. He was also preparing to break through to the Emperor Realm. However, his foundation was still a little lacking. He would not be able to find the opportunity to break through for the time being. Chu Zan looked in the direction of the ancestral residence. Chu Yun's cultivation level was still weak, so it was time for him to devote some resources to this little sister of his. He would help her increase her strength as soon as possible. Chu Yun should also participate in the exploration of the Asura ancient land. He would guide her into the pocket dimension to cultivate. Chu Zan made a decision to increase Chu Yun's strength to the Truth Realm as soon as possible. Buddha Nanwu was still refining his golden body. His progress was not slow, and it was estimated that he would be able to complete it in half a month or so. Chu Zan was not in a hurry to discover the secrets of the Asura ancient land. After all, there was still a lot of time until it would open. On the other hand, the Bai Sheng mountain ruin was about to open. Chu Zan took out the heaven spying mirror and began to observe the process of Bai Sheng mountain's ruin opening. He was just watching for the novelty of seeing people explore the ancient ruin. It was very much like watching a movie. Boom! Space shook. Baisheng Mountain's ancient ruin was becoming clearer and clearer. All the people who had obtained a spot looked at the ruin with a solemn expression. Those who had not obtained a spot were all expelled and had to stay 100 kilometers away from the ruin. The major forces each sent out experts to guard the entrance of the ancient ruin to prevent people from sneaking in or breaking in forcefully. Those who had not obtained a spot were either itinerant cultivators or those from small and medium-sized forces. These cultivators naturally did not have the ability to fight against the combined forces of the major forces. As for the top experts among the itinerant cultivators, such as that half-step Emperor Realm expert, they had already obtained a spot. Naturally, they would not stand up for these unrelated cultivators. Ding Yu looked at the ancient ruin that was about to open. He expressionlessly still held his long sword. It seemed that he did not sense the malice of Nine Swords Mountain and the other experts. Boom! Space shook and a gap suddenly opened. Baisheng Mountain's ruin had finally re-emerged from the spatial crack. The ancient ruin was now open. Enter. The Nine Swords Mountain elder led Ying Jiangkong and the other experts of Nine Swords Mountain to the entrance of the ancient ruin. Lu Pingfeng also led the Great Qian Dynasty's exploration squad in. Heavenly Cauldron Mountain, Evil Imperial Court, the Great Qin Dynasty. All these experts entered one after another. Han Yingmeng's figure was graceful as she followed that beautiful woman from the floating flower pavilion toward the entrance of the ancient ruin. As soon as the people from the floating flower pavilion moved, beautiful petals fell from the sky, making them look like fairies amidst a verdant garden. Han Yingmeng looked at Ding Yu, who was still standing proudly on the mountain peak. She sent him a voice transmission, "Be careful. Nine Swords Mountain and the Great Qian Dynasty are conspiring to kill you." However, she immediately regretted her actions. Why did she remind this B*****? Had it not been for him, she would not have been belittled so many times. Ding Yu looked at Han Yingmeng in surprise. What did this woman mean by that? A friendly reminder? Or did she want to use this opportunity to gain his favor and get close to him? Dream on. She should not even think about messing with my sword heart. After the cultivators from the floating flower pavilion entered, Ding Yu moved and headed toward the entrance of the ruin. They wanted to surround and kill me. Ha, so what if they have half-step Emperor Realm experts? Stepping into the ancient ruin, the first thing that greeted him was a huge broken statue. The statue was broken, half of its head and one of its arms was missing. Apparently, it was destroyed during the battle. Ding Yu saw a name on the base of the statue. Baisheng. He was the founder of Baisheng Mountain. The sect was also named after him. Baisheng was a famous expert in the history of the southern region. However, he would never have imagined that the sect he founded had been destroyed. The entrance to the ancient ruin was also the entrance to Baisheng Mountain sect. It was a huge square that had been destroyed during the battle and was full of potholes. The square was constructed out of gold and jade, and had an array formation engraved on it. Attacks by ordinary Emperor Realm experts would not be able to leave a dent on it. Even so, the square had been destroyed. This also indicated how powerful the Baisheng Mountain sect was back then. The square that served as the sect's entrance was already so extraordinary. It was clear how rich the sect was at its peak. Yet such a powerful sect had been destroyed. The battle back then was likely very intense. 4 figures suddenly appeared from the 4 cardinal directions, surrounding Ding Yu. All 4 were half-step Emperor Realm cultivators. These people were the Nine Swords Mountain Elder, Lu Pingfeng, the red-bearded Elder, and the itinerant half-step Emperor Realm cultivator. In the distance, many people had stopped by to watch. The 4 experts attacked. No matter how strong Ding Yu was, he was not an emperor or even a half-step Emperor Realm cultivator. He was almost certain to die. Are you really not going to attack? The beautiful woman from the floating flower pavilion asked. She did not think that Ding Yu could survive the attack by the 4 experts. Even if he managed to escape this time, he would definitely be heavily injured and die in the ancient ruin. How could Ding Yu, alone, fight against the combined forces of several major forces? Han Yingmeng shook her head and said, "There's no need. I don't have much of a grudge with him. Even if I'm angry with him, I won't take the risk." Take the risk? The beautiful woman did not think that joining the attack was a risky move. The evil king's disdainful voice could be heard from afar, using numbers to bully the weak. I'm ashamed to be associated with such despicable people. Everyone was speechless. You're a heretic cultivator, for God's sake. Why are you talking about rules and justice? It seemed like the evil king's brain was really damaged. The experts from the evil imperial court were helpless. They were afraid that the evil king would cause factions to join forces against them, as that would truly be troublesome. The evil imperial court had always had a bad relationship with the floating flower pavilion in the Great Qian dynasty. If they provoked Nine Swords Mountain and Heavenly Cauldron Mountain as well, things would not end well for them.